All right, guys, welcome back. We are here at Whole Life Millionaire, and today I've got a really, really special guest, someone super special to me. I've got a guy who I like to refer to as David effin' Berlant. And there's a story behind David effin' Berlant in terms of what I call him, but the story of David Berlant is about a story about an Ironman, probably one of the sweetest men I know, one of the most optimistic people I've ever met in my life, and a guy that is absolutely burning it up, lighting the world on fire in real estate here in Central Florida. That introduction is not nearly as encapsulating of the man of David Berlant. This guy can juggle, ride a unicycle, play the guitar, the piano. I mean, just so many things. So let me introduce you guys to one of the world's greatest human beings, Mr. David effin' Berlant. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God, my man. So it's been a long time coming. Getting an opportunity to dive deep into that beautiful brain of yours and actually see the world through the eyes of David Berlant.
Yep. I've heard a lot of people want to hear from me, so why, I don't know, but we'll do it.
All right, so here we go. David, you were born in New York. You grew up in New York for a little bit, transplanted here to Florida. You're the product of a family of 5 boys?
Yep, 5.
All right, and where do you land in that lineup?
I am number 3.
So you are the middle child.
What am I saying? 4, sorry.
So you're number 4.
Number 4, yep.
So you're the
almost middle.
Almost middle child. What was growing up like for you?
I actually had a good childhood. I grew up great. I mean, we lived in Longwood, Sweetwater, and just my parents had a very unorthodox business, so they didn't really do the normal thing. We had a family entertainment company.
So your parents ran this, inflatable carnival game business. What was it like doing that?
Yeah, it was pretty fun, not gonna lie. I mean, I got to do a lot of the work behind the scenes, so that kept us pretty busy. But we got to play on all the inflatables and play all the games and see all the things happen.
So what did your dad do for a living during that season of your life?
I mean, he would be literally driving the truck or going and meeting the truck driver and unloading all the equipment, setting it up, running the event, packing it up, and going home.
So he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely.
But he had a passion outside of that. And what was that?
Well, he was a magician.
So that was where I was trying to get you to go to. So your dad's a magician.
Yep.
Who loves entertaining people.
Oh, yeah.
And that led you into what kind of entertainment did you start doing?
Well, we learned to juggle and unicycle and do all of that because it kind of just came with the territory.
So you are like not just a juggler, you can juggle anything, right?
For the most part, yeah. I can pick up 3 random objects and just start juggling them pretty well.
Right, including like knives and swords. I've seen that.
Yep.
And then obviously riding a unicycle. I mean, who rides a unicycle anymore, David?
I don't think anyone does.
Do you still have one?
Not in my possession, but my brother has it in his garage. So.
Okay, so you could get back to it.
I could.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that. Party Games with David Berlant is now available. Weekends and holidays only. Bar mitzvahs, birthdays, holidays, weddings.
Yep, all the above.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. So I remember at this season of your life that you kind of adopted a nickname. Your dad shared with you a nickname. What was that nickname?
Yeah, Mr. Helpful.
So what did that mean?
Well, I was just very helpful. I asked a lot of questions. I was always kind of hands-on to help with pretty much anything that, my dad wanted to do or the brothers or my mom. Just Mr. Helpful all the way.
Right. And fast forward to today. Has anything changed?
No, same thing.
Isn't that, who you are as a real estate agent, businessman, and friend, family member as well?
Yeah, for sure.
So where does all that come from? Personally, I would say I'm not that helpful. I'd like to be more helpful, but you just seem to have this level of optimism and desire to serve people that's pretty unique. Where does that come from?
I don't really know. I haven't really thought too much into it. I just have always wanted to do more and help more in the way I think. I feel like there's always a way to figure it out. If there's a problem, like how do we solve it? And my ability to just think around and think outside the box to come up with whatever solution that other people can't. I feel like it's just been the way I am, no matter what I'm doing, work or training or talking or anything really.
Really, that's beautiful. So with that being said, here you are, high school, you graduate high school. What was the first job you had?
My first job, other than working for my family, was a sub shop in Longwood.
Oh, yeah? So now Longwood, for those that don't know, that's actually just about 20 minutes north of this downtown city, Orlando, off of I-4 there, right? Mm-hmm. Small bedroom community, mostly, middle class neighborhood, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, perfect. So you worked at a sub shop. What'd you do there?
Well, I made subs,
Right.
and they had another opportunity to work in the concession stands all across Altamont and Longwood. So
What'd you learn by working there? What were some lessons you could say you took away from your first job?
yeah, I saw a lot of people who worked at the same company that didn't last very long. I worked there for almost 6 years, so I felt like I was able to stick it out longer than most of the people that worked there. So I liked that. What else did I enjoy? I got to eat some food after. I always got to take a sub for lunch, and I liked the money, although I didn't make much. It was minimum wage, like $6.25 an hour. But I enjoyed the working process. And actually, one more thing, which is I got to leave school early to go to work. So it was on-the-job training. You could take classes outside of your high school to literally leave school early, which I took that opportunity as much as I could, and literally go to work. I had to submit pay stubs and time clocks and everything.
Wow, sounds cool. But again, that level of loyalty, why did you last 6 years? What are we thinking? 16 to 22, 15 to 21? How old are you?
Yeah, I was 15. I had a permit at the time. I had to get dropped off. So then I got my license when I was 16, and I worked there for pretty much right until I got my real estate license.
So why did other people that worked there not work out while you did work out?
Perhaps it's like a temporary job. Most people really didn't just stick it out. The boss who was there really didn't hire the best people. And, it's not a fun job. It sounds fun, but it's not that much fun. You got to remember people's orders. You got to deal with the boss, which he wasn't I don't know if I should be saying that. He wasn't the most pleasant to deal with, but I just toughed it out, I just stuck it out. I wanted to earn the money, and if I didn't have a job, I couldn't leave school early, so I kind of had to take what I got.
Yeah, but you're 18, 19, still working there. You didn't have to go to school then.
Well, no, not really, but he worked with my schedule. I think that was a big one, because I was still going to college at the time. Like, I went to college for almost 2 semesters, and he worked with my schedule, so that was cool.
Okay, so there's a level of loyalty there for you. That's probably your loyalty probably overweight his loyalty, but
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. And then you go to college, then you get your real estate license, and then you became mega rich, right? Like right out of the gate?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Well, what happened?
So after I got my license, I worked with my dad for about 2 years.
So what is your dad? At this point, your dad's no longer doing the carnival games?
No. My dad got into real estate probably after the market crash in like 2008. From what I remember, I was in middle school. I don't really know, but He got into real estate. He was selling real estate locally, and he was doing pretty well at the brokerage he was with, and everybody said he was a top producer. And when I got my license, the first thing I did was go work with my dad and sat over his shoulder, watched what he did, just listened to every phone call, went on every appointment, just chauffeured him around, and then shortly thereafter, about 2 years of working with my dad, we ended up all moving over to Keller Williams, and I decided to kind of take my next step on my own and just go out on my own and do it without, my dad with me.
Yeah, obviously you saw your dad had some level of success in real estate, so you decided to go down that path. But your dad also had a successful, carnival game, corporate picnic business. Why didn't you just do that? You knew how to do everything. Well, why choose the entrepreneurial or sales approach as opposed to maybe that job?
The business kind of faded away with the market. So he didn't pivot to adjust to the time. That was when all the technology was coming out. Virtual reality was just sort of starting to be a thing. So he just didn't pivot the business, and he pretty much let that business go. So he was out of that completely, 100% real estate. Okay.
And so your dad's now in real estate. You're learning from your dad. You're kind of figuring all that out. It sounds like family business. Now, I understand you have some other brothers that are in real estate too. Did they join around the same time? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I got my license 2013.
Okay.
And then I worked with my dad for about 2 years. Right before the 2-year mark, Sam got his license, and he came.
Sam's your older brother.
Yep.
Okay.
So Sam got his license, came to work with us, all 3 of us. We were the Berlant team.
Okay.
And that was right when we moved over to Keller Williams. So once we got to Keller Williams, I went out sort of on my own, and Sam and my dad, which Sam was using that mentorship because he just got in. So they were working together. I was sort of working on my own. And then shortly thereafter, my dad and Sam said they're going to go off and do the whole brokerage thing, or open their own brokerage and work on their own and not under the umbrella of KW. And I made the decision to stay.
Now, is that an easy decision? How did you come about that decision? I mean, you obviously working with your dad, it's got to be something your dad wanted, and it sounds like something that maybe you wanted as well, and then you didn't do it. So what made you make that decision?
You know, it was really hard. Like, I remember it like vividly because it was that hard. Like, I just wanted to do on my own. I felt like that was the right thing to do. I never really I didn't move out of my parents' house until I was 20. So it was around that time I was moving out of my parents' house, and I was going out on my own to try to make my own way in the business. And I wasn't amazingly successful when I was working with my dad. I mean, I know the first 2 years can be really challenging. You're really cutting your teeth to figure it out. But I wasn't just like figuring out the real estate business. I was like figuring out my life. Like, what do I actually want to do? Do I want to stay in real estate? Do I want to go do something else? I felt like that was the time for me to like really figure out what I want to do and not be influenced by anybody else.
Yeah, and that's a challenge because, at 20 years old, all young men, that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, that range, I imagine women too, that's when we really start deciding, do I want to be my dad? Do I want to be my mom? Do I want to live the life that my parents have set me up for? Or do I want to do something different? And that's the season of rebellion where you make bad choices or good choices. That's just really when that season happens. And that's what I call your mini life crisis. It's not your midlife crisis, it's your mini life crisis. And it's really when you start striking out against, what you've already been told and known, and you start challenging those beliefs you have. It's a beautiful season. For some people, it can be extremely challenging. It can be challenging because of the decisions you make in that season, right?
Right.
For you, it was challenging, not because you were making bad decisions, because you were making a different decision. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is not one of those podcasts where we just kind of stay on the surface. There's real people with real problems that I want to relate to people like us. What kind of emotions were you going through? Like, what kind of feedback were you getting? What was happening during this season?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I told my dad, I was shaking when I told him because, I didn't want to tell him because I felt like I was sort of abandoning him and doing that. But, he ultimately understood. But leading up to me talking to him, I absolutely consulted many people. Not a lot, but I consulted, like, I remember Robert Jerome. He was one of the big influences in my life at the time.
Yep.
Because he was 19 when he started his real estate business, and I was 19 when I started. And so I remember talking to him, and he sort of coached me a little bit on, what he would say and what he thinks. And I talked with our team leader. I talked with Denise, and all three of them, all the people that I remember talking to, they were pretty much on track with, what is in it, what's in your best interest. Like, let's talk about David, not talk about anyone else. Because as I was telling them, like, this is what I want, I kept using my dad's name and my brother's name. I kept saying, like, well, no, Sam and Dad. Like, I wanted them to benefit, and I felt like I was not doing what was in their best interest by me, like, stepping out on my own. So I had to they had to remind me, like, we need to think about, like, what's going to make you feel successful and feel like you're making progress and doing what you want. Does that make sense?
Of course it does. It sounds to me like what you're saying is I found this place in my life where I'm at these crossroads where I have to make this decision of quote unquote what's best for me, but yet it feels a lot like betrayal.
Yeah.
How did you get through that? How did you land on a decision? I mean, when you've got these two roads, one that feels like betrayal and one that, that feels like I'm doing what's in my best interest. And meanwhile, it's not two decisions, it's the same decision.
Yeah.
How did you get through that?
I think the big reason or the big thing that helped me, like, make my decision was the fact that they decided not to stay with Keller Williams. They were moving on to another company. So, I mean, their office was right next door to where I was sitting in the kind of the I can't remember the name, but the room where everybody sits, the powerhouse.
Right.
So I sat there and they sat in their office. And then once they were no longer sitting in that office and not even in the building, it just sort of made sense that it kind of felt normal at that point. And also, Keller Williams is awesome at what they do. I mean, they can really get people with some energy, and other agents doing exactly what I was doing. They have Bold. I signed up for Bold pretty quickly, and Bold changed my life for sure. I mean, I've recommended it to plenty of people. I've even paid for some of our agents to go through it that didn't have the money to do it because, I mean, it was that impactful. So the things that KW offered was really, at the time that I needed to hear it, I heard it, and I would not go back. I wish
Yeah.
I could have made that decision earlier, but nah, here we are.
I'm sure Gary Keller, the leadership at Keller Williams, the leadership here at our office, all appreciate what you're saying. Appreciate it so much because you skipped from working with your dad straight to Keller Williams, and I think there's a season in there where you actually worked for Exit Real Estate.
Yeah, that was where we started.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Exit's where we started.
So you guys were together at Exit. That's where you met Robert.
Yep.
And then you came to Keller Williams. Got it. Okay. I'm caught up to speed now. Got it. So then you come to Keller Williams. I mean, what are your thoughts as a young real estate agent, entrepreneur, man who's trying to find his way? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well,
Is it survival? Is it multi-million dollars? Like, what are you thinking? Because it's all over the place. I talk to agents all the time, and some are, I want to make millions of dollars, and some are, I just want to find my next paycheck because I can't afford my rent.
Right. At that time, I really can't remember my thought process of how I was thinking. I remember I was kind of at a point where I'm going to have to figure out, can I actually make it selling real estate? Because, I mean, that was the beginning of me, moving out of my house, my parents' house, and moving in with my friend Charlie, and like starting to actually pay my own bills. I had to pay my own car insurance, and I was already paying my own car bill. But it was a portion of survival, but there was somewhere in my head where it was like, I knew I was going to survive. So I wasn't like freaking out. Like when I talked to clients, I wasn't, hey, you need to buy this home right now. I don't think I gave that pressure or that vibe off. I felt like I knew I was going to make it. It wasn't 100%. It was probably like 90, but I played full on. I went 100% into real estate, and I pretty much said, if I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it. And there was a portion of time where I was getting to a point where I had no more money. Like I went to the bar, I remember, it was Graffiti Junction in Longwood, and we would work at the office. It was fun. Go to the office, a couple guys, we'd go to the bar after, and I remember putting my card down, and we would go a couple times a week, and the bartender brought my card back and was like, hey David, like, you got another card? And I'm like, yeah, I got another card. So I pulled out another card, and it was a debit card, not a credit card, and it went through, so no problem. But I mean, I maxed out a balance on one of my credit cards. So I wasn't loaded. I wasn't doing amazing. I was doing just enough to be broke, like we talked about here. And I knew this wasn't a good fit, and I had to figure out, what do I need to do? And that's actually when I signed up for Bold.
So again, here's the young man trying to figure himself out and making the classic mistakes, right? I'm going to go buy a round of drinks for the guys, and I'm going to buy another round of drinks for the guys. And then along the way, one of the other things you did is you went unconscious to the realities. Like, I remember myself, I did this. That's why I know your story very well, is that I remember a time in my life where times were tough. I probably had created them myself, but they're now tough. And I remember saying to myself, rather than open this credit card bill, I'll just throw it away. And if I don't see it, it's not real.
Right.
And then the same scenario popped up. I went to use a credit card and it didn't work. And I tried to use another credit card and it didn't work. And then came the reality, I've got to change my ways, because if not, this is not leading me towards a better life. I'm actually doing better, but I have a worse life. And it sounds like that's where you were.
Yeah. I mean, there were some other things going on at the time. I had taken on a mentor sort of took me on that was actually a really not so great influence on me. And so I kind of just fell into this having fun, selling real estate, working, doing what we're doing. But at the same time, I was financially going in a very, very bad direction, max credit cards, and couldn't make my car payment. Like it was getting bad. Yeah.
And I mean, again, so many times I've seen real estate agents, business people, they come into an industry like this, they get that big check, that $5,000, $3,000 check. And that would take you months to make, in your previous career.
Right.
And they think they're rich. And then they think the model of success is this behavior of, I've got an expensive watch, I buy drinks for everybody. I mean, and that good news for you is you didn't have Instagram and Facebook back then.
Yeah.
Because if you did, you would have had to then live up to this fake facade of reality. And it was that was you kind of starting to see the bad things were occurring that made you pivot.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it wasn't like you had to hit rock bottom. For you, it doesn't sound like it was a rock bottom place. You didn't get arrested for DUI or thrown in jail or find yourself, homeless.
Right.
You just kind of caught it early.
Yeah, as early as I think I could have. I mean, I still feel like I could have caught this way earlier, but I was enjoying life at the time. I really was enjoying it. And like I said, that mentor that I had was leading me in a direction I could tell was not the way I wanted, and I just had to make a change. And so when I made that change, it was this person's no longer in my life, and these people are no longer involved with me, and I'm not going to those places anymore, and I'm going to really make a commitment to go this way, not that way. And that was when I said I'm signing up for Bold. Funny enough, it literally Bold was coming, and I actually got a sponsorship. I got a sponsorship for Bold. Keller Williams actually paid for me to go to Bold, and I ended up paying them back through my my real estate income over a period of like 6 months because I wanted it. They offered it. Peggy Brock was the one that actually said, "Hey, like we can probably help you with this if you really want it." And I'm like, "I'm ready to do it. I'm going to play full on," and that's what happened.
So, I mean, that's when you actually really started playing full on. Before you were playing full on, but then nights and weekends, you were making all the classic mistakes.
Right.
You weren't playing full on in your financial life. You were being responsible partially responsible in your business and irresponsible in your personal life. Then eventually your personal life caught up to you.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there's this saying that, old people like me say is that the chickens always come home to roost. And that means like, listen, this behavior will only last for a season, and then they're going to figure it out.
Right.
It's going to show up. Like the results of your actions are going to play out.
Yep.
And there are some people that can get away for a long time with that. And those are the people that usually fall the hardest.
Right.
So good for you is you're not that good at being slick, and you got slapped early, and then you pivot. So you keep talking about this class Bold. And again, like, listen, I give these disclaimers Danny, I mean, my producer is going to start shaking his head. I give these disclaimers every time we do one of these podcasts. I either say, this is not the Bible Hour with Dan Grieb, because we end up talking about God for something. And the next one I want to say is like, this is not a Keller Williams recruitment video.
Right.
This is your story, and like whatever is whatever. And if you are at a different brokerage, or you own a different brokerage and you listen to this podcast, like, I'm fine with that. You're fine with that. We're not trying to get anybody to come join our cult or come drink the Kool-Aid. Like, do you, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. So let's dive into some Keller Williams shit then. I mean, since we're going here.
Right.
What is Bold?
So Bold, it's changed a little bit, but the Bold I remember is basically a mindset class. They put everybody in a room. It's maybe 100 realtors or so. They bring you in. They have a coach that's teaching the class, talking about, what is it going to take for you to make it in this business. It's all driven off of production. It's prospecting, mindset, prospecting, mindset, and then the biggest one, which is accountability. So they put a lot of influence on how do we help you as an agent grow, and what should you be doing, and how do you do it, and then how should you be thinking while you're doing it.
How is this class set up? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so they put you in groups of like 8 to 10 agents times 9 or 10 groups, and they put you in a room. You sit with your team, and they set up a team leader or the main person, and then like you have a co-captain, captain, and co-captain, and then the rest of the agents that work with you. And at the beginning of the class, you basically schedule or set up your accountability. So they have a couple benchmarks. From what I recall, it's contracts written, listings received, and then buyer-broker agreements that you have to get filled out.
Yep.
And you have to report your numbers each week in front of the entire group.
Okay, and so what was your biggest takeaway during that season?
My biggest takeaway,
or your biggest takeaway from Bold? Like, what were you taking away as you're learning that? I mean, let me back up. Let's say it this way: when you started Bold, your first couple classes, because I think it's like 9 weeks long or something.
Yep.
What did you learn in the first 1 or 2 weeks?
The first 1 or 2 weeks, I was still kind of getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's not comfortable being in front of a bunch of other people who are, also in real estate. You think people are just selling way more homes than they actually are, and maybe some are, but you have to kind of get over the uncomfortableness of being in a room and being vulnerable, because you're definitely revealing everything you've got. It's like, this is how many contracts I have pending, and this is what I've done, and financially, like, where are you? It's all based on like how many homes you're selling and the contracts written and listings received. So the first 2 weeks were definitely just getting comfortable speaking with other real estate agents and talking in front of many, many people about like my business that I'm in.
Yeah. And how was your business when you got into Bold?
It was not good.
So it's a humbling process.
Yeah.
Where you got to be honest. Unless you lie. I mean, listen, there's probably people that go to these classes and they say they are doing better than they are, and then they report numbers that probably aren't true.
Definitely.
And you chose not to take that path.
Right. Nope.
Because you wanted a different life.
Yeah.
Now, what's making you again, I'm rewinding and thinking about the people that are going to listen to this that might want to attend Bold or some other class and have some level of transformation in their life. What is it that's gravitating you to I'm going to do the right things? Because nobody has to teach somebody how to lie. Children don't have to be taught how to lie. They don't have to be taught how to be selfish. They just are. We are liars. We are selfish. So you have to actually choose to be vulnerable and not lie, not be selfish, not do those things. What's pulling you in the direction of doing those things, the right things this time?
Yeah, Rob Daniel was the coach. You know Rob.
Yeah, I know him well.
So Rob Daniel, he was our coach. I mean, he was one of the best coaches for Bold that I think are out there. And he talked about really diving deep on your why. And, at the time I was 21-ish. I was around 21. And he was just saying, here is, why are you doing what you do? Come up with your why. And they have you put down on a piece of paper. They're like, all right, spend $100 today. And then you write down what you would buy. And then he's like, all right, spend $1,000. And then you write it down, spend $1 million. You got 10 minutes to spend it. Spend 10 million. So he was teaching us to think bigger. And that was one of the things that they did. And then they also talked about this one video, and this might go too long, but he made everybody stand up. And they played on the screen Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror." Do you remember that with Bold? Mm-hmm. And I mean, they make everybody sing it out loud, and you're reading the lyrics. And I remember singing the song just because that's what we're doing. Everybody's doing it, so I'm just gonna do it. And I actually started tearing up from the song because I can't remember the exact lyrics. Maybe Daniel put them up, but it's I'm talking about the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. No message could be any different. If you want to be in a better place, you have to look around and make a change. Right. That was the point of the video. It was saying are you happy with where you are? Yes or no? And if you're not, it's up to you to make that change. And I just remember listening to it and, saying the whole song with everybody, and we start clapping and dancing, and it just made me tear up. And it was one of the things that I remember vividly because I wasn't happy with who I was, and I wasn't making the money I want to make. And I owed my little brother money. He helped me pay my car payment because I didn't have the money. And it was just a tough time that I just had to see it through.
Love that. So the actual verse says, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If they want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make that change.
Yeah.
You getting the chills right now?
Yeah.
You listen, when you find yourself in a place where you're dissatisfied with who you are, it's a beautiful moment when you have those tears.
Right. Because
that's you saying, I want to be better, but the role I'm playing in my life is not the person I should be.
Right.
One of the things I say a lot is don't say, what should I do? Say, who should I become so that I can?
Right.
And that's you saying, I need to become this better person. I need to make better choices so that I can have that life. And those tears are confirmation, I can see it. And in that, there's a level of fulfillment and fear, beauty, and terror at the same time.
For sure.
And that's, every man walks through that. Every woman walks through that. And that's part of the growth process.
Yeah.
So good for you. I'm glad you went through that. I hate that you went through that, but I'm glad you went through that. And if there's anyone else that's going through that, just know that it's a season. It's not the rest of your life. It's a season. It's beautiful that a class, a real estate class that's all about selling more houses, helped you find yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad it was the time. I mean, I met a lot of people at that class that, I still know and talk to today. I met you at the class. You were in that same class. Funny enough.
Yeah. Well, we got some fun stories to talk about that. So why don't we just lean into that? So I'm in the class as well. Yep. That exact same class. I think it may have been my fifth time.
Probably.
And throughout my career of Keller Williams, I've been honored to be mentored by Gary Keller himself, the founder and CEO of Keller Williams. And I've been able to communicate with him, via text message, email, have access to this brilliant mind in real estate, and then quarterly go to these mastermind groups where I sit in and I hear what we would call Gary Keller unfiltered, right? And he said, if you want to master anything, you got to do it 10 times. So I was like 5 times into Bold. I was 5 times into taking these other classes within Keller Williams, the things that I wanted to master. And I was successful in real estate at that time. I had kind of gotten through the season that you're in now, and I'm starting to obtain some wealth, and I'm also on my own journey to become somebody better and different.
Yep.
I think it'd be fair to tell the story about how you got to meet me, the unfiltered version. I'm okay with you telling the unfiltered version, but I also want you to know, David, that while you were reading that song about the man in the mirror, so was I.
Right.
I was extremely, by nature, I am a high D driven person. But I'm also crazy sensitive, like crazy. As high as a driver I am is equally as high when it comes to sensitivity. The only thing I've ever wanted to do with my life is change my family tree.
Right.
I received some challenges as a young man that were unspeakable, very difficult. And I want to make sure that everyone else that comes into my life that has the last name Grebe, or that I have the ability to influence or lead at any level, that their lives are better because of the pains that I've suffered. And I read, and I can tell you, I'm 100% sure, I'm about to cry now, but when I was singing that song, I was crying too. I was on the other side of the room.
Yeah, you were. I remember.
You were on one side of the room, the rookie real estate agent trying to figure out where he was going. And I was on the other side of the room, knowing where I was going, but didn't like the way I was doing it.
Right.
So let's tell the world about how you met me.
Yep. Well, I think it was funny because I remember, can't remember her name, Christy Pels. That was her name.
Yep.
So I knew Christy back from Exit Realty, and funny enough, Ben Winden was on my team too for some reason. But you had the rest of your team on your Bold team, so I was on my team. So I heard like every week they announced the results of like how many listings did you say you were going to take, how many contracts did you write, and how many were you supposed to write, and how many were you supposed to get by your agency. And then you announced to the group how many you actually took. So if you said you're going to get 2 and you got 2, you said, I got 2 listings. We said we get 2, we got 2. We said we get 4 contracts, we got 4. And the majority of the room would put up pretty big goals. We're, as a team, 10 people, we're going to write 10 contracts.
Right.
And we're going to take 15 listings and 12 buyers. But then how many did you actually take? It was like 1 listing, 0 contracts, and 5 buyer agency agreements. So that's kind of the MO of the whole room. It's everyone's working on making more money and setting big goals and having consequences if you don't hit your goal. And then it always came back to the Dan Group team or that group. And you guys were like, we're going to take 15 listings. And how many did you actually take? 31. We have like 13 contracts we expect. We got 19 contracts. And then buyer agency, we got 10. It was huge numbers week after week. And I'm like, goodness, what are they doing? And then Christy on the last day of Bold said, do you want to be introduced to Dan? And I'm like, yeah, I would love to. So she brought me over to you and said, Dan, David, Dan. And I said, I'm David. I work at the Heritage office, and I'd love to take you to lunch or set up a meeting and to talk about joining your team. And you said, contact my assistant and get on my calendar.
That was, yep. That's not the man I am today, but that is the man I was. So let's say in a different way, I just dismissed you and gave you my card and said, talk to my assistant.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and at the time, just recognize, David, like for me, I had just come out of a couple of hard years. My first years in real estate, I blew it. I made all the money and blew it too, like worse than you. Like I made a lot of money. I didn't go out drinking and partying. I made bad investments and listened to knuckleheads and bought cars and houses and things that I thought was the way to success because I had no father figure, anyone that could kind of guide me along the way. So the people that were giving me advice were in more debt than I was, making the bad choices I was. So I had just come off that. And I was in this laser focused place where I was going to accomplish big things, not only get myself out of debt, but get so far away from debt that my family and I would never feel that pain again. Mm-hmm. So you found a very intense person. And I was at conflict. I was happy with my business production. I really wasn't happy with the way I was doing it. but I wasn't willing to stop doing it, even though I knew that the man in the mirror I wasn't proud of.
Yeah, and actually, right before, or during that class, you were in the process of losing weight to take that surgery.
That's right.
Like that was what you didn't do it yet. You were in preparation to do it, so you were pretty big. I mean, I didn't
300 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Looking back, it's crazy, but yeah, you were losing the weight to have that surgery, so you didn't have it yet, but yeah, that's what I remember.
All right. So then what happens? Then you call my assistant, and then what happens?
Yep. So I called Melissa, or I emailed her, and she said, "Okay, Dan's available on Tuesday at noon." So I made my trip up to the downtown office off of Colonial, and I sat in the office waiting for you to get there. And a couple agents were there, but you were on your way, and then you weren't. And Melissa came and said, Dan has overbooked himself, and he's not going to be here. So why don't we reschedule you for another day? I said, no problem. Let's figure it out. So we did it for another day. So I left, came back, and I was there again, ready to meet with you. And then they came back again and said, Dan basically had overbooked himself, so he's not going to be here either. So like, let's try to rebook you. And so I, at the time, pretty much was like, damn, I really wanted to meet with him. And, I'm at that time struggling. Like I really wasn't selling a lot of houses, and I was going through Bold, and I really, or I just finished Bold, but I was doing what I learned in Bold and just trying to make it work. So I finally got on the calendar again. And
I'll stop there. Why did you want to meet with me? Like, what did you see that opportunity looking like for you?
Well, I had a chance to know a few people who were on the team, so I had a chance to talk to them while I was waiting for this meeting with you, and sitting in the office, like watching them work and looking at the production and looking at how much fun they look like they're having, and it was everything I wanted from my real estate career, and it was everything I didn't have, and I just really wanted to make it, and I saw the path of like I can learn what I need to learn working with you and on your team, and that's what I was all eyes on.
Yeah, so you were trying to, obviously either get in a relationship with me or to work with me so that you could be more successful. You saw this as a pathway to live that life you wanted to have. And, you were willing to make the changes so that you could. And then, lack of a better word, I just kept blowing you off.
Pretty much, yeah.
I can tell you now, like, I was not blowing you off. I just did not know how to manage my schedule very well then.
Yep.
And I blew it.
Right.
And it wasn't blowing you off. It was blowing it, just not being a good manager of my own time.
Right.
I'm better at that now.
Way better.
But like they say, the path to leadership is riddled in dead bodies.
Yeah.
And what that means is to become a great leader, there's going to be people behind you that you've quote unquote killed, right? You've messed it up with them. And so there's all these people that your pathway to great leadership has wounded other people. And I'm the leader I am today because of the wounds I've inflicted on others. Because I'm practicing my leadership, I got better.
Right.
But I clearly want you to know I wasn't blowing you off.
I know. I mean, I figured it out pretty quickly. But later that day, after we rebooked for a third time,
yes,
I was in the downtown office, just sitting in the computer room, and you kind of ran right by, and I stopped you. I'm like, oh, Dan, it's David Berlant. We were supposed to be meeting at 2:00, and you're like, oh, hey, so sorry, but I have another appointment, but I've got like 30 seconds. Why don't we go sit down now? So we went into the office, and you're
sounds like I'm about to recover and be the hero. So tell me what happened.
Yeah, well, you said, all right, tell me what's up. And I said, well, we met in Bold, and, I finished Bold. I'm trying to take listings. I'm working with buyers. I took 2 listings so far, and I'm really trying to make it work. Also, I'm in, debt. I maxed out my credit card. And
so you're being totally vulnerable. You're laying it all out.
Yeah.
You're looking for an opportunity. And what did I say?
Well, you said, you're not ready. You said you're not ready to join the team. You said you're not ready to join the team. And I was like, damn, okay, well, what do I have to do? And you're like, go show me you can actually sell real estate. So I went out there, and so after that, I basically decided, like, all right, let me just go keep doing what I'm doing. And during the next probably 30 to 60 days, I probably called you like 20 times. Like, hey, I just booked this for sale by owner appointment in Windermere. Would you be willing to come with me on the appointment? And hey, I got this buyer. What do you think I should do? They're not pre-qualified, but they don't have a lender, and they don't want to work with the person I said. And I was just all over, like, contacting you, saying, can you help? And you kind of sort of helped, but not really. And then it was March of 2016 when you said, "Hey, David, I have an opportunity," and that was the beginning.
Yeah, I hate that story. I really do. I hate that person, and I recognize it's a necessity. It's necessary for the story,
Right.
but I hate that guy. I'm really kind of ashamed of the way in which I behaved then, and I can tell you I'm not that guy today. But I mean, on the level of like, was I directly rude or disrespectful? I don't think so.
No.
But I believe in this verse in the Bible, and it says, "Where much is given, much is expected." And I knew that I was blessed. I knew I didn't belong where I was. I knew that I was pursuing a better life, and I was on the path to changing my family tree. But I also had felt like I had ruined it by putting my family in really difficult financial troubles.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, I became extremely transactional, non-relational. My goal was sell a house, get the home sold. I was never doing it unethically or improperly. But I wanted to just change my family tree in terms of the wealth. And that was the season I was in. My health was a disaster.
Yeah, right.
I was 300 pounds. I mean, I was Mountain Dew and, honey buns and just crappy food, staying up 24 hours a day, working, just constantly in that zone, driven by fear and this good desire to change my family tree. I just knew I was doing it wrong. And I knew internally that I was doing it wrong because I was crying when I was reading, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I wasn't proud of who I could see. And even though I was overweight, I wasn't happy with the man that body represented, the way I was behaving.
Right.
But it was working.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't want to shut it down. So then 2016, you joined the team and we go through this phase together.
Yeah. Yep.
Where, what happened?
Well, a couple things happened. The team and physically. So which one do you want to go first?
Well, obviously, the physical happened first, actually. I went away. I had a weight loss surgery, something called the gastric sleeve. I knew that I needed help because I was inappropriately handling my stress and had completely lost control of food. And so my anxiety felt like hunger. My dad's an alcoholic. My brothers are alcoholics. My uncles are alcoholics. The majority of my family are alcoholics. And I'm not an alcoholic. For me, I would just go eat. See, I didn't want to grow up to be like my dad, so I wouldn't drink like my dad. Right. I never smoked, used drugs, did any of those things. But I still had to deal with this anxiety and stress and my daddy issues, which were pretty severe.
Yep.
So I would eat.
Right.
And I had a weight loss surgery to try to get a head start.
Yep.
And that began my health journey.
Right.
And right in the middle of that, as God's plan worked,
yep.
My COO
mm-hmm.
Was having an affair with our college intern.
Yep.
And she had aligned our team to not tell Dan.
Right.
Because I would fire everybody if I found out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, just like we said, the chickens come home to roost.
You found out.
The chickens came home to roost at our Keller Williams Company Christmas party. And it wasn't just our little Keller Williams Christmas party. It was the first year where all two of our offices came together. So it wasn't 100 people. It was like 300 or 400 people at a party.
Yep.
And they had their big blowout. Of course, I had already gone home. I was going to work the next day. I was going to work out the next day. So I didn't stay late. And boom, it was a disaster.
Yep. And then I joined the team.
And then David joins the team, which is, beautiful opportunity for you.
Yep.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yep.
So what made it the best of times and what made it the worst of times for you?
Well, when you talk about your weight loss journey, I had a weight loss journey of my own, and I didn't even realize I needed to because I just remember one of the things being on the team, being with you, you would just say like, go do this, like go call FSBOs, go call expireds, go call withdrawals, go open houses, go do door knocking. And then one day you were like, David, you should go work out. That's it. You said it just like that. David, you should go work out. And you're like, hey, I go to Orange Theory. So like, why don't you go to Orange Theory? And I remember that day I signed up for Orange Theory in Altamont because I don't know why, just that was the one that was available. And I went to Orange Theory on Saturday. And I did the class, I finished it. They sat down with the coach and they're like, hey, you did great. Here's what you did well. Here's what you can do. And here's what we suggest you do is like 3 times a week. And I just remember saying, I'm going to actually do 40 days straight. Like that was kind of the beginning of like my exercise journey of doing it. I'm like, if I can do it 40 days straight and then go to work right after, like I'm in this mode where I'm going to just go hard. And I remember going 40 days straight, doing Orange Theory. And during that time, I lost a bunch of weight, probably like maybe 15, 20 pounds. I started at a good 220. I looked well for 220, but I remember stepping on the scale at Orange Theory, and I was like, or maybe it wasn't at Orange Theory, but I remember stepping on the scale. I was 220, and I ended up getting down to like about 200, and I started to run. Part of the Orange Theory is the treadmill, and they said, hey, you should come to like one of these running groups that we do in downtown. So I started showing up to the run group, and I just started to build my running 2-3 miles, most I ever ran at one time. And then I quickly, met people that wanted to run more and more. And that's what led me to doing the Disney Marathon 2018.
Well, hold on there.
Yeah.
Along that way, somehow you and I hooked up because I did 100 days at Orange Theory in a row. 100 workouts in 100 days.
It was around that time because I remember we were both doing it at the same time. So we did a bunch of classes together.
So you had a 40-day journey. I had a 100-day journey. And at the time, we didn't even know that we were doing these 100 days.
Not really.
Or maybe, I don't know. I don't recall. Maybe you jumped on the last 40 because I'd already been going. I don't know how it worked. But beautiful for you. But that wasn't the only 100-day challenge you did with me.
Yeah, right.
So what happened right after that?
You were in this big yoga kick, and like you wanted to do hot yoga and OPY, and you liked doing the yoga and getting juice right next door after, and so you invited me to come to do it. And I mean, hot yoga is one of the hardest things to do. It's just
hot power yoga,
and it wasn't like a 45 or 60. It was like the 90-minute class, and with that many people, like it gets really hot in there, and the positions and the movement. I mean, I got I learned child pose pretty quickly.
Yes. So now you did 100 days of yoga. So 100 days of Orange Theory, then 100 days of yoga.
Yep.
And let me just tell you, the reason why I came up with this idea of 100 days is that to be a Marine, it's about 4 months. It's 120 days. So if you can become a Marine in 120 days, you can get fit in roughly 100 days.
Yep.
You can get very proficient in yoga in 100 days.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is the consistency of doing it, right? Now, what makes you awesome, David, is you're extremely coachable. For me, if I said, hey, David, let's go do, 100 days, you're like, okay.
Right.
And you would just do it. For me, it was always a purpose. Like I did hard things because I wanted to practice adversity because I didn't want to grow up like my dad.
Right.
And I wanted to get in shape so I could be a better model for my children. And I had just learned in that season of my life that I could have it all. At that point in my life, I believed that I could be a good husband.
Right.
And I could be a good father. And I had a good business. But my health, like I wasn't trying to risk that.
Right.
Like my health, I was like, I don't know about that. Because like I believed in this concept of subtraction thinking, not addition thinking. So in subtraction thinking, what happens is you say, I want this and I want this and I want this. So if I want to have something else, what am I going to subtract?
Right.
Well, I was already a good father. I was already a good husband. I already had a great business. Like, which one of those am I going to? And I was going to church. I had a good faith practice in my faith. So I was like, all right, now I want to get healthy. So am I going to give up on being a good dad?
No.
Am I going to give up on being a good husband?
Nope.
Am I going to give up on my business and all the people that helped me get to where I am right now?
Yeah.
Am I going to give up on my faith?
Nope.
So I'll just leave that one out.
Right.
Because I didn't believe that I actually deserved to have it all. And it was within Bold and this season of my life that I was, crying at the man in the mirror because I was thinking like I could be that person that has it all, but I needed to be validated. And it was older men, my coaches, my mentors that were speaking in my life saying like, you could be like me. Like, you're not just the poor kid from Long Island, New York. You could be like me too. And for me, I immediately felt this responsibility that if I was going to win, I had to take somebody with me.
Right.
And it was really helpful in the fact that you were always willing to say yes.
Right. Even if I didn't want to, I still did. I remember.
Yeah. And I mean, it was challenging.
Yeah.
So you did the yoga with me. You did the Orange Theory with me.
Yep.
You were running now.
Yep.
And then one day you come up with this idea to do what?
A triathlon.
Yeah. That was not my idea.
Right.
That was your idea. And if I remember correctly, it was you were going to do a triathlon with your brother.
Yeah, Sam was supposed to do it.
And he backed out.
And he backed out. He had a wedding, I think, that weekend. It was a sprint triathlon.
A wedding that
Yeah,
weekend.
he did. He did. I remember.
Okay.
But it was a sprint triathlon. And at the time, you know, a triathlon in whole, swim, bike, run. And the sprint is on the shortest of level. It's a, 500-yard swim, 12-mile bike ride, and then a 3.1-mile run. So short in a way, but if somebody who's not in that world, to me at that time, neither of us were, Sam wasn't, like that's like running, 10 marathons in our head.
Yo, absolutely. So you asked me to do it.
Yep. I said, hey, do you want to do it? I have the extra bib. And you said, I know lack of better words, you said, yeah.
Yeah, I said, let's do it. And let's just be honest. I was deathly afraid of the swim.
Yeah, no, you were not prepared for it and you didn't want to do it. And,
But now I felt this responsibility because you had said yes to everything I asked to do. And now you're this young man, and David, I always knew, even today, I always knew you were a good guy. I've said this since the day I've met you. I've always said you're a better man than me.
Yeah.
I believe that. I just think you just have a better heart than me. You're just a good guy. Like you're the type of person that God gave the earth to. I wish I could say the same for me, but I think God gave the earth to people like you. Just good of nature. No one has to tell you to be good and optimistic and right. You just do it. And you can't even explain where it came from. You just are it.
Well, thanks for saying that.
Oh, it's the facts. Of course I'm crying. So then we decided to do this triathlon.
Yep.
And so what do you remember when we're about to get started?
I remember, right when I offered it to you, mind you, this was like a week before the race. So we didn't have any time to really prepare. You went out and hired a coach immediately, day one, Hector Torres. And, Hector gave you this like kind of nutrition list, and you would freeze this bag and put it there. And then you had kind of what you needed for the race. And then the morning of the race,
I actually had a bicycle because I was riding a bicycle. So I had a
nice
road bike. It was kind of a nice road bike, cheaper end road bike. And you had
I didn't have a bike, so I borrowed your mountain bike.
So you were going to ride a mountain bike.
Yep.
We're about the same height, so you could have ridden the road bike. But because I'm selfish, I rode the road bike. You rode a mountain bike. And we get packed up. We get there. And I don't know how you felt that morning.
I felt okay, but I felt okay because I saw how much you were freaking out.
I was freaking out. Now, describe the lake we were swimming in.
Yeah, so the lake, mind you, it's in Lake Nona. Lake Marsh, Lake something. Do you remember the name of the lake?
I don't, but it's dark.
Yeah, it's a dark lake. Darker.
These are not the ones you normally do triathlons in.
Not really, and if you remember, a year after we did that race, that same location, the race got canceled because somebody got bit by an alligator.
In that lake.
In that same lake not during the race, but same thing.
Yep.
So yeah, dark water, huge lake, not something that you or I had really, that was my first open water swim. I think it was for you too.
Absolutely. I'd only swam in a pool and not well.
Yeah. And we were like getting ready to get in the water, and all the other people who were there. That was not a big race. There were probably 50 people.
Yep.
And half of them were doing the sprint. The other half were doing double what we were about to do. And I remember someone saying like, oh, are you doing the Olympic? I'm like, nope, I'm doing the sprint. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing the Olympic. And I'm like, damn, that's a long race. And like thinking back, like that's not that long. But we were both there, and you were freaking out. That's the only way. It was like, you kept telling everybody, I just got to get out of the swim. Because, once I get on the bike, you can't drown on the bike.
I probably said that 1,000 times.
1,000 times.
I think I was talking to myself. Yes. Okay,
yeah.
Keep going.
And so I remember starting the swim, and I remember swimming, and I wasn't swimming very well because I didn't really know how. I didn't doggy paddle, but I swam as best as I could. And I vaguely remember looking over to you, and I think you were on your back,
I was
backstroking.
I was 100% on my back.
Okay.
Freaking out, looking up at the clouds.
Yep.
Because I felt like I was drowning.
Right.
I literally felt exhausted the moment I could no longer touch the bottom of that lake.
Yeah, which is instant.
It was like I remember thinking I'm not going to make it, and looking up and realizing like that's the shore right there. Like I may have been 20 feet, and I'm already on my back, like barely moving, like a walrus, like
right.
just swimming on his back. you know, and I'm just trying to figure this out. And I don't know how I made that swim, but I figured it out and I got it done.
Yeah, we both got it done.
And then we got out on the bike and you took off. And what happened?
So I got on the bike, on the mountain bike, which is not a normal bike. I mean,
you were the only person on the mountain bike.
I was the absolute only one. And I remember I was wearing tri-shorts, no shirt. And mind you, being like, in my head, I was kind of heavier. Like, you would never catch me without a shirt on. Why? I didn't know anything else to do. And putting a shirt on in transition, I just did what I had to do. No clips, no nothing, just flat-footed right with my running shoes. And I take off on the bike, and it was 12 miles. And I thought, 12 miles can't be that bad. I did that on the stationary bike at the gym at LA. And that took, I don't remember how long, but maybe 50 minutes. But this bike ride took forever, absolute forever. And I just remember you passing me at like maybe halfway, and you're like, zoom, cruise right by. And I'm like dying because everybody's passing me because I'm on this mountain bike.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about sports, right? Is that it humbles you, you know, and you're going to quickly learn what your limitations are and what you're capable of. The good news is you're going to learn what you're capable of.
Right.
And we get out on the run, and I finish, I get out on the run, and I think I get 2 miles in, and I'm completely gassed, and about a mile and a half mile left, David Berlant passes me.
Yep, I slapped you on the butt.
Yep, slaps me on the butt, beats me on the race. With that first sprint triathlon, what were the lessons that you could look back on today? Because that was 8 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2016. It was the beginning.
So 9 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely was glad that I finished it, glad that I did it. We were both coming off of, like, when you do your first triathlon, you get this like high that I can't explain. Mm-hmm. It's just so energizing that I think that day we didn't sign up for an Ironman, which is, 100 times longer than the sprint. But we were pretty much like, we're going to go and push this further and further. And we wanted to do more. We were addicted. I bet by the end of the day, we signed up for another race. I don't remember which one. Might have been Powerman Duathlon, but we were so energized. So, but as far as like learning purposes, I definitely learned I need to do this not on a mountain bike.
Right.
I got to learn how to swim. And then I think that was where you had said like, hey, I'm going to go, like, we got to get a coach.
Yep. So now it was, we need to go get a coach.
Yep.
So then we went and hired a coach. I think I already hired him maybe a week ahead. And then I encouraged you to do the same. And we hired a coach, and we kind of entered into this new world of triathlon. Yep. And we were getting up every day. And so what did your weekly training regimen look like now? It
changed a few times, but the triathlon training was pretty much 5 to 7 days a week, 2 times a day, really. I mean, we did, I think, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday swim.
That's correct. At what time?
It was 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
And then Tuesday, bike trainer. Thursday, track.
That's correct. In the morning.
And then Saturday was like long bike.
And
then Sunday was long run.
Okay. And then
strength sprinkled in there.
Right. So we were swimming, and then we were going to strength training right afterwards.
Yep. We did that for a while.
And then we would do bike and then run.
Yep.
And then we would swim the trainer. We did that every day for a year.
At minimum.
And then we went and volunteered somewhere. What happened there?
So, quickly, with the group that we were training with, it's a bunch of people with the Ironman tattoo that I have now. And, but at the time, I'm like, these people are badass. I mean, they're badasses. Like, old, young, didn't matter. They've done this long race that I could never imagine. You can't even comprehend.
So what is an Ironman?
So the Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim.
Okay.
112 mile bike ride.
Okay.
And then a 26.2 mile run off the bike. All in one day. You start at 7 a.m. and you don't stop until you finish, basically.
And how long do you have to do it?
You get 17 hours to do it, but you could still do it if you don't finish in that 17, but you're not officially an Ironman. But 17 hours.
And then each leg has a cutoff too.
Yeah.
So if you don't finish the swim conceivably in X amount of time, they'll pull you out of the race.
On a full, I think it's 2.5 hours for the swim.
Same with the bike though.
The bike, if you don't, there's lots of cutoffs on the bike, depending on where you are. And if you've hit this point if you've hit mile 90 by 9 hours when you started, you're okay to continue. But if you don't hit it, they'll pull you off the course and say your day is over.
So it's not just do it, it's do it. And there is this kind of constraint coming.
Yeah. Right.
And then same with the run. Yep.
Same with the run. That's probably the hardest one. But once you get off the bike, you've got so much time to finish a marathon, and you got to get it done. So run, walk, crawl. You just got to get it done.
All right. So you're on this health journey now, and David, prior to this, what kind of athletics had you really been involved in your lifetime?
Other than like recreational, like school volleyball, none. I was not in good shape. I couldn't run. I never lifted weights, never really went to the gym.
So talk about your mindset as well. I mean, you've got this optimistic mindset, but like, do you come from a family of people that are optimistic?
I mean, not necessarily. But
So like, was it inbred in you? Like, was your dad challenging you every day to go charge the next mountain? Were your brothers challenging you to charge the next mountain? Like, what was your upbringing like with that?
Yeah, I don't really remember being encouraged to do anything exercise driven or to like go take on bigger things or push to do better. I really, maybe it was because I had too many brothers, but my parents were pretty busy doing what they were doing, and we weren't really pushed to do that. So getting into this triathlon exercise world, I probably went from being the least in shape person in my whole family, including my brothers, to absolutely being the best shaped person in my family times 10.
Plus, you are also now starting to hit your stride in real estate too.
Yeah.
So now you've got this new life of triathlon, training, mentality, growth, but you're also experiencing that in your real estate life too.
Yeah, well, that was the big push that you had, which was like finding things that are transferable. The idea of if you can go be an amazing runner and you can go run a 90-minute half marathon or a sub 3 half marathon or 3.5 marathon, that if you can do that, which is at the top of the game for me and maybe not for the elites, but if you can go do a 3-hour marathon or 3:30, you're in pretty good shape. But you said take that, and that's transferable. So if you're doing really well as a runner, you can do really well at selling real estate. And you made that correlation and you drilled it down, and the victim mentality versus accountable mentality. And during all the training of triathlon and exercise, we weren't just training then that we'd get finished with the workout and come right to the office, and we would be making calls and contracts and builder visits and all the above. And it all was kind of just working at the same time, and I believed it.
Right. Well, yeah. And so, but here you are. How old are you?
At the time, 22, 23.
So you're 22, 23 years old, and you are like literally changing. You're looking at doing an Ironman race.
Right.
You're making great money.
Yep.
You're challenging your belief system in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
And your belief system and whether your parents kind of challenged you or not, that's not some type of indictment on your parents. Your parents, I've met them both. They're great people. I love your mom. She's one of the sweetest human beings I've ever met. We've invited her over to be with our family whenever she wants. She's been active and involved in our family. Think the world of her. So that's not an indictment. It's a question about the choices you decided to make.
Right.
It's a setup for the next set of questions, which is, so why are you doing all this? Like, I mean, this is not natural for you. Why are you deciding to take on so much? Because the undercurrent is not just do an Ironman, not just be successful in real estate. You're becoming really close to me.
Right.
And so you're being, don't forget, I'm driven at a level 100 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Right.
So now you have to work out every day.
Yep.
So what happens if you were late to a workout?
Yeah, it wasn't very good. I got definitely a talking to from you. It was like, hey, why aren't you here? And it was like, not just like a friendly, like, hey, why aren't you here? It was like, what the hell, David? You're supposed to be here. If you're not going to treat this seriously, then how are you going to treat it when you have a client that needs you to be somewhere? And if what you do, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. A lot of that, like you have to be here. You made it really important on things that at the time I'm like, I get it's important, but it wasn't like life or death, so you really drove the points home on times when it really wasn't needed, or when it really wasn't as important, at least to me, that helped me understand like I have to really be on it in every area of my life.
Right. Well, hopefully what you took away from that was a little bit of my own talk to myself, but hopefully you benefited from that. Who do you have to become?
Yeah. Right.
And for me, it was like, if I want to be someone that people actually want to follow, then I have to start being accountable myself. I have to be on time. I have to do those things. I have to make these changes. Now, remember, the last story you just told before we started talking about all this Ironman stuff was Dan didn't show up twice, 3 times to your meetings.
Right.
And now fast forward 3 years and Dan's like, you have to be on time every time, everywhere.
Right.
Can't be late anywhere. And I'm on time like clockwork.
It's funny. I didn't even think about that until you just put that together.
That's for real.
I mean, it makes sense.
Well, here's the deal is, David, I could not let you, because I'm starting to view you as, my son, my mentee, this kid that's, giving his life to me, saying yes to everything I ask him to do. I have to give him something more than money.
Yeah.
So then we decide to go. I mean, this story is beautiful. It gets really beautiful. Don't be surprised if Dan doesn't start crying here. If you're enjoying the story so far, it only gets cooler. So then I say, David, let's go volunteer at an Ironman.
Yep, Ironman Florida. Yep, we signed up. We drove all the way the 8 hours to Panama City Beach to basically just do anything that Ironman needed to do, starting at, the day before, but starting on the race day, 5 a.m., 4 a.m. We were, in the swim area, helping people get ready to jump in the water and, talking to people and watch them getting hyped up about to go complete this massive undertaking. It's a full Ironman. It's at the time, I mean, it's still a big deal, but watching them, how they prepared and just helping any way we can from beginning until literally the last person crossed the finish line.
Yeah, we were there. I mean, I think we were there probably 3:30.
If not earlier.
Yeah. 3 o'clock maybe. I mean, we were excited. You got the short end of the stick. I got the great end of the stick. I had some medical training.
Yep.
And because I'm very driven and I'm a freaking weasel, I weaseled my way into being a on-course medic.
Yep.
So I could do whatever I wanted and could go wherever I wanted.
Yep.
So for me, I literally got in the water and was like a lifeguard in the water.
Right.
So if anybody passed out, I could do CPR on them, right?
Yep.
So I'm literally, a couple hundred yards out with a float, like watching people swim by, experiencing the swim.
Yeah.
And then when that was over, I'm in transitioning, watching people transition.
Yep.
And then when the run comes, I'm on the run course, like walking around chilling.
Yep.
Or bike course, I'm just chilling. And they give us snacks and food. And where were you this whole time?
I was going to say, do you remember where I was?
I know exactly where you were.
So if it's the same place, so the bike exit or the bike incoming. So after you finish your 112-mile bike ride, they had a line of us at the bike dismount line.
You were a bike catcher.
You're bike catching. So when you run in from an Ironman, you hand your bike off to, if they have that. Not every Ironman has that, but this Ironman Florida, they did, where you hand your bike off to a volunteer. And that volunteer looks at the number on the bike and runs it back to the 5,000, wherever their bike number is. You rack their bike and you just rack their bike and you get back in line. And doing that for how many people were even in that race? What do you think?
2,000.
So 2,000 people, and I was there just running bikes the whole time. And then you see Dan, while I'm taking this guy's bike, Dan's like checking his eyes out, like, "Are you okay? You good? You good? Hold on, stop." And like the guy looked fine, but Dan stopped him anyway. and the guy's like, "Let me go, man." And
there's a lot of people actually that passed out.
No, for sure. And
then we actually, I mean, as a medic, I was taking them off the course because they were just done.
Yeah.
And they're like, they didn't know where they were, and that was like freaking me out.
Yeah.
Like, look at all these people like ready to pass out. Like, I don't know if we're gonna be ready for this.
Yep.
So we get through that day. What are the lessons you were learning? There while you're there. Experiencing what's going through your head.
Yeah. At the time, I mean, I was just so energized to do it that if you remember, we signed up for that Ironman the next day.
That's right.
Because they give the volunteers the option to sign up before it opens. Because at that time, you might not get into the race.
They sold out.
So
right.
If you don't go and volunteer, it's a guaranteed slot to get in. So we signed up for the race the day after. I remember laying in bed because I felt like I ran an Ironman doing what we were doing. I was running all over the place, catching people at the finish line and, pep talking them. I actually caught Julian. That was when Julian Perez, I caught him at the finish. And
that was his first Ironman.
And, that was an experience just catching him and talking to him because he didn't even recognize me when I caught him because after an Ironman, it's a long day. You're not really looking for anybody. You're just, I need to get this thing done and I need to get off my feet. I just learned a lot about, like, this is what I want. That's what we're gearing up to do. And being able to say that I completed an Ironman, like, that to me at the time was, like, probably the biggest thing I could have ever done. And even till today, I feel like that's one of the biggest things I've ever done in my whole life was finishing that first Ironman.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, what I took away from that is I had a different perspective than you because I wasn't busting my ass all day. I was basically chilling and doing medical stuff. But after the bike, I was in the transition tent where you kind of take off your bike clothes, you put on your running clothes, and you take off on the run. And I remember a guy sitting in the transition tent, and I'm just walking through checking people out, and that's what we were supposed to do. And I'm checking this guy out, and I'm like, you can do this, dude. And he's like, no, I'm done. I can't do it. I'm done. I'm like, no, you can do it. Why don't you take a minute? I'm going to go get you some gel or whatever. I'll give you some gel and take a minute. And I think you can do it. Now, what I learned is that guy thought I had already completed an Ironman and maybe even thought I was like a coach because I was speaking so authoritative. And he got up and he went out and did it.
Right.
And, God's timing is never too early, never late. He works all things out. I was with you catching people at the finish line.
Right. I remember.
And I caught that very guy.
Oh, no kidding.
And when I caught him, he mentioned that. He's like, hey, do you know who I am? I'm like, no. And he said, I'm the guy in the tent that you said you can do this. And I got up and took off.
Wow.
Because of you. And thank you. And it was just a beautiful moment. And for me, what unlocked in me is I could do this. When you think about 140.6 miles, that sounds crazy.
Oh, yeah.
2.4 miles swim in the ocean. Now, the waves in Panama City are treacherous.
Yeah, they were not fun.
And
they've canceled that swim plenty because of the waves and the riptide.
People have drowned there. It's been very challenging. The bike is flat, but it's straight wind on the way back. Yep. So it's wind at your back. You're like, listen, Panama City is no problem.
Yep.
It's at my back. And then on the way in, it's just killing you.
Yep.
You're riding 12 miles an hour for 3 hours.
Yeah. It's
extremely challenging. And then the run is just hot.
Brutal
run. It's very challenging. There's not a lot to see. It's just a mind game.
Yep.
And I remember saying to myself, I think I can do this. But it wasn't just I can do this, I could be this.
Right.
And if I can be that, what else can I become?
Yep.
And that was kind of what was going through my head. So we decided to sign up. We trained for a year.
Yep.
Let's fast forward a year later. David Berlant, Dan Grebe, we hit the start line at Panama City. That was 2020. What? 1, 2?
That was not 2021. I think
maybe it was 19.
It had to have been. I think it was 29. No, because I met Claudia in 2018. I think it was 20.
It was 2017.
I don't know.
It was 2017.
Yes,
I have the plaque at home.
We did Disney Marathon 2017. That was my first year. And then it was that same year. Yep. So November 4th, 2017.
And then you do the Ironman. What happens?
That was a tough day. I swam pretty well. I got out of the water. I think I did an hour 20 in the water.
Okay.
And
that's a good time.
Great time. And then you get out of the water and you got to take off your wetsuit. They got showers that you just run by to get the salt water off you. And it's probably about a quarter to a half mile to get from the swim to the bike. And you got to go through the tent, grab your bag with your number on it. And they don't hand you your bag. You've got, they do some handing, but you just have to find your number, grab your bag, and then run it again through to the changing tents. And I vividly remember dumping the bag out, putting my wetsuit in there because you're trying to do it, goggles, cap, tie that up, put off to the side, and then I go to put on the shoes, and they're not my shoes.
Oh.
They were pink, so they clearly weren't mine, but I grabbed the wrong bag. And I'm like, shoot. So I have to take all my stuff back out of the bag, put my shoes back in there, put the shoes back in, run it all the way back out, find the spot that I had, and I'm yelling at the volunteer, just saying hey, I picked up the wrong bag. Here's my number. It's on my chip, on my wristband. And he's looking for me, and we finally get the right bag. And I get back in transition, change, get out on the bike, and onto this 112-mile journey, which is a long bike ride.
Now, David, we know now, you're a very good runner.
I'm a decent runner.
No, you're a very good runner. You ran a 3:30 marathon once, right?
Yeah.
That's a very good run. Now, what's the pace on that?
So it's 3:25 was the total time at Disney, and that was a 7:40.
So you have run a 7:40 straight.
Yeah.
26 miles.
Yep.
But you are not a very good cyclist. Cycling does not like you.
Nope.
And you don't like cycling either.
Nope.
So for you, that bike was torture.
Oh, it was the worst thing I ever had dealt with in my whole life at the time.
Yep. So but you get it done.
Yep. So the bike,
adversity on the bike. Tell me about the adversity on the bike.
Yeah. I didn't crash on the bike that year, but I definitely, just dealt with all the issues that you would deal with on the bike. I mean, my legs, I get some pretty bad quad cramps. So, I was trying to pace myself, drink my fluid, eat my gels, eat my nutrition, get what I can. But, I cramped up in my legs at like, I don't know, mile 70. And at that time, you have 80, 90, 100. You've got like 40 plus miles to go with your legs already pretty cramped. And at that time, you're, 6, 7, 8 hours into this race, and you still have to run a marathon. So I finished the bike finally.
So why didn't you quit? Why didn't you just call it a day?
Well, you were there, and I think at the time you might have been. You probably already passed, so you were there. And if I didn't finish, I knew I'd hear you in the back be like, "David, no, you got to finish. You can do it. You can do it."
Now, is that forget that you're talking about me, just somebody else. Like somebody else's voice is in your head. Was that voice in your head one of those voices of condemnation? Like, why didn't you finish? Like, jerk? Or is it that voice in your head like, you can finish?
It was a little bit of both, but definitely more of like, you can do this. Like, you've been training for 12 whole months to finish this. And, you've got all your people there, everyone's counting on you to finish. And, and at the time, like, it was the biggest thing I was ever doing to date. And I really wanted to finish. And, all I had to do was just keep moving. And if I can get off the bike and I still have time for the run, then I can do this. So
then you do finish the bike.
Yep.
You get in the changing tent and you get off to the run. What happens?
Yep. So, I mean, similar to the bike, my legs were pretty cramped up at that time, but I just had to keep moving.
So now you are on the run, and what's going through your head now? I mean, you're at the point of human exertion. Like you're there.
Yep.
You've pushed past everything you've got.
Yep.
And what's going through your head?
Well, I was still thinking, like, when is it going to come time where, like, I'm just going to fall over and die, basically, or when my legs just give out on me and I'm on the ground and I can't move anymore. The 26 miles of the running was just like every step I'm not feeling very good. I'm in tons of pain just from the energy that I lack of. And I just thought maybe this step is when I just can't take another step. So I was like pretty scared at the time because I really wanted to finish and I didn't want to let myself down and I didn't want to let anyone else down. And, I really wanted to finish. So just every step was just when is it going to come time when I can't move anymore? And, just when is that going to hit?
Okay. Now I've got a video, which we're not going to play,
Nope.
But I've got a video of you actually finishing. And as you enter that finishing chute, it's pretty obvious that you are crying.
Yeah.
So it's loud
crying.
So
ugly crying.
What's happening?
So it was probably about a mile before the finish when it was like, I looked at my watch. It wasn't close to 17 hours. I think I finished 13:04 or something.
Okay.
But I was like, I'm going to finish.
So the reality's coming that you're going to finish.
Yeah. Thing.
You're crying right now. That's beautiful.
Well, I'm like, because I remember it like so vividly, like I'm getting a mile close to finish and I don't know, I led up to like my whole life was leading up to that very point. And all the training, all the hours, all the work that I was doing to like finish the race. And I can hear it, can't see it, but I can hear it. And I'm like just leading up to finishing. So I'm just running. And up until that point, I was still like walk running. So I wasn't going very fast. But that last mile, I was running faster than I ran when I left the chute.
Right,
so,
and you can hear the voice of Mike Riley, which is the iconic voice of Ironman.
Yep.
You are an Ironman.
Yeah.
So-and-so, you are an Ironman. You are an Ironman. And now you're getting closer and closer and closer. And as you get closer, you can see the lights. The lights is a production. It's very lit. It's dark out. You can hear the crowd cheering when people go through. You're half a mile out.
Yep. And I'm just crying, like ugly crying out loud. Like I couldn't control it. It was funny, but I mean, it was hard. It hurt. Most of the crying, I think, was like pain because like my body was just so done. Like it was done miles ago. It was done before I got off the bike, but I'm like, I just had to keep going. And, I got to the finish and ran through and, finished it. And just, I was like, I did it. I'm done. And I, at the time, said I'll probably never do that again. Little did we know we signed up for another one next day. But, I finished it, and it was just super emotional. And, it was just like the best and the worst day of life because it was really hard. But, I got the Ironman tattoo. I finished. I did something that most people will never do, and I was happy about it.
So, David, let me ask you this last question in regard to this Ironman. You're not in pain right now, but yet you're still kind of emotional.
Right.
Where's
Trying not to.
Where's that emotion coming from?
I guess it's just recalling it and like how far I've come since then. Because, I thought that was like I was done. Like I thought I did everything I could accomplish, and like looking back at what we've done since then, I'm like that was nothing. Like that was just the beginning. That wasn't even the beginning. It feels like that was so long ago, and we've done 5 of them since then. Me and you've done plenty more, and we've done half Ironmans, and we've done amazing things since then. That it's funny to think that was only like barely the beginning.
Right. And that's the beautiful part of this. And that's that hero's journey we talk about, right? So you got this separation event that starts with this thing where you decide it's just never going to be the same again. I'm going to leave my dad, my brother, and it's painful and I don't want it. And it's the separation. And there's all this emotion and strategy and things that go on, right?
Right.
And then you get to this place called initiation.
Yep.
You meet the new people. You meet the new guy. You become something new. You start to learn that it's possible to be an Ironman, a businessman, a successful real estate agent. And then the back section of that's called the return, where you use it for good. And we're going to take a break here, but before we do, one of the coolest things of your story is just a year later, you return to do that Ironman again.
Yep.
And you bring your little brother.
Yep, Robbie.
And your brother becomes an Ironman too.
Yep.
All right, let's take a break right here, and we'll be right back. Now, we talk about this hero's journey, this concept of separation, initiation, and return. And what's really cool for you, David, is that a year later, you return to that Ironman, do the exact same Ironman. Who's with you?
Robbie, my younger brother.
Yeah. What did it feel like, getting your brother to do it, training with your brother, and getting him to now pursue this as well?
It was fun. I enjoyed, Robbie being there and training with me and training with us, and, just looping him into our life. Actually, funny enough, right before I started this like weight loss journey, getting in the best shape of my life, Robbie was the one who was in the best shape out of all of our family, but he had just blew out his knee, ACL, MCL, and meniscus tear during wrestling. He was a coach for wrestling at Lake Brantley, and he just tore it, and now he's in 6 to 9 months of recovery, surgery. So while I was training, I was talking to Robbie saying like, hey Rob, am I skinny yet? And he literally said, Rome wasn't built in a day, David. And I'm like, all right, well. So when Robbie finally got back to it, he was interested in coming and training. So running, like him and I did his first, 13-mile run. And then we did his first marathon. I think it was Space Coast Marathon. And I didn't run it, he did, but I just was there watching him. I probably still ran 20 miles that day, but bringing him into my world. And he also saw me when, he was the first person I paid back when I had money. Cause he paid my car payment for a couple months. Like just $200 car payment I couldn't afford. And I owed it to him to like give him everything I could. So like I paid that back, and I just was there and wanted him to have everything that I have and more now that I'm just starting to begin.
Well, that's what makes you a better man than me. You're that guy that does that without, somebody teaching you that. You just did that on your own. That's from nobody but you. Good for you, David. All right. So now you and your brother complete Ironman Florida together, and then we continue racing. Your brother starts racing with us. You both qualify for
the World Championship Ironman 70.3 in South Africa.
So that's basically a half Ironman, but it's still 70.3 miles.
Yep. And
it's in South Africa. So you and your brother go out there and you guys complete the Ironman South Africa. What was that experience like?
It was pretty amazing, actually. South Africa, I had never left the country before then, so I didn't even have a passport. So I had to get my passport. We had to, fly to South Africa, and we had to figure out our accommodations. Luckily, we were able to get with a triathlon group that they had rented a house that was secure with a gate, and they helped us figure out like where are we going, how do we get there. They were local South African. Anders, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And then his dad, mega. They're like elites in a way. They're elites in their own. Like we were not on that level, but we like to think we were because we were housing with them. But we got to South Africa. We did a bunch of stuff like touristy. We saw We did a safari on the elephant zoo, Addo Elephant Zoo, huge park. And we ate and we drank and we had a good time. And then race day was race day. So it was not an easy day on that race day. The women's day is Saturday. Men's day is Sunday. The women had perfect weather, great water, great course on the bike, tailwind the whole way. And, and that run was it was a good run. Our day was complete opposite. It was horrible winds on the swim. I can't believe they didn't cancel it, but they didn't. The World Championship, they don't cancel those. The bike was pouring rain. So it was a very hilly bike. I mean, the first probably 30 miles you don't know it, but you're actually going uphill for 30 miles. And then the backside was all ups and downs and ups and downs. But, when you're on a bike and it's pouring rain and you have lots of people that are racing with you, you can't take the downhills like you would like. You work really hard to go uphill, and then you want to hammer it downhill and get all the speed behind you. You can't do that when you're riding your brakes down the hill.
It's so dangerous.
It was very dangerous. People crashed out. Many people were sent to the hospital because they crashed on the bike. That's just what happens. And I was not prepared to go 50 miles an hour downhill and crash on my bike in a country, in a foreign country. Plus, you can't really drink the water there. So they weren't giving out all the same type of water bottles that we were used to. So there was a little bit less nutrition on the course. You really had to be prepared. And then you get off the bike, and then the run was the run. That was to date my best half. Actually, maybe not my best. It was one of my best half Ironman runs I had ever done. I think I ran a 1:45 off the bike, which for that time, off the bike was pretty good for me.
That's excellent. Well, that's and I love that you got an opportunity to go and share that experience with your brother. And again, here you are on your own journey, becoming something new, growing something new, and now taking other people with you.
Yep.
So let's bring you back to the United States. David, when I met you, you were a little chubby.
Yep.
You were wearing literally your dad's clothes.
Yep.
You literally had your dad's suits on, and your dad wasn't what I would call fashion forward.
No, right.
He was, kind of a little older, wearing older man suits, and you were wearing a JCPenney suit. And I started challenging your mentality then.
Yep.
And what you didn't know, David, is you knew I had a charity called One More Kid.
Yep.
And it was based on a child that my Mindy and I lost. His name was Zach. And it was based on the fact that if we had Zach with us today, that we'd have to pay for everything for Zach. We'd have to pay for school supplies for Zach, and soccer for Zach, and meals for Zach, and clothes. And it just as life went on, we would have to pay for those. So Mindy and I said the way that we're always going to remember our boy Zach was by just paying for another child that lived a life like he did. And so it was very easy for me to start paying for things for you.
Yep.
Because you lived the life that Zach could have lived. You were everything that we had always hoped Zach could be. And I started vetting you in the background. I don't know if you knew that. You probably had heard, but I started vetting in the background you and thinking, you know what, Zach would have an inheritance. And I was doing very well in real estate, and I was planning for my life to go well and for it to be big. And I knew that there was an inheritance for Zach. And Mindy and I were thinking, maybe we'll just give it to David. And we started vetting you. And
I had no idea.
Yeah, and your life actually got a lot harder.
Yep.
There's a story I'd like you to tell about a car ride after you and I did a race involving salt. What do you remember about that story?
Yep. So we did the Miami Man Olympic triathlon. That was our first Olympic, so double the sprint. And, the race, it was a tough race. I mean, the swim was good, but salt water. The bike was okay. And
hot.
Then it was hot. Yeah, the bike was hot and okay. But and then the run was the run. It was a little bit trail run. It had a little trail, a little bit of road. But it
was hot.
But it was super
crazy hot.
Yeah, super hot. And we take salt to be on the bike. You have to refill your salt, and the way we had it was a little tube with salt in it, and you lick your thumb, you put it on top, you shake it a little bit, and then you have salt on your thumb, and you lick it.
And what that does is it keeps you from dehydrating. It kind of keeps the water in your body.
Yeah, and
keeps you from cramping.
Keeps you from cramping. And what happened was on the transition from the bike to the run. I had a salt container either in my bottle, or it might have been in my back of my tri-kit, and I went to go look for it, and it wasn't there, and I believe I dropped it in transition.
Okay.
And I started on the run, 6.2 mile run, and I pretty much bonked at half mile. I was I bonked. I just had to walk. And then after I walked, then I jogged, and then I kept running. But it wasn't much of a run. It was actually a terrible, terrible run. You know, I couldn't do what I wanted because I can run pretty fast when I just go run.
Mm-hmm.
But swim, bike, and then run, I hadn't figured the magic yet, and I didn't have my salt. And after we finished the race, we were driving home from Miami, which was like 3-ish hours. And, you know, you're like, how did your race go? And I'm like, well, I did okay. I would have done a much better job if I had my salt. I lost in transition. And you were very quick, pretty much instantly said, well, hold on, let's talk about it. Why do you think that is the case? Like, what does salt have to do with you doing well on the race? And I'm like, well, no, I cramped. You know, if I had the salt, I wouldn't have cramped. And you just kept driving it back. Okay, so why did you cramp exactly? And like, because of the salt. And he's like, are you sure it was because of the salt? Or maybe it was you just didn't train hard enough, or maybe you didn't pace yourself properly. And you just, we were running in circles for 3 hours, really, like figuring out like, why did this happen? And like, are you sure it was the salt, or are you sure it wasn't you?
And that was your first lesson into the concept of victim versus accountable.
Huge, yep.
And I would not let you off the hook. Like, you are not a confrontational person.
No, not really.
No, you are not a confrontational person,
Okay,
period.
no.
That's
Right.
the reality. You are a master deflector. Like, you're the best deflector I've ever seen in my life.
I do my best, but you know.
Like that. That's deflecting right there. You're just the best at it. You're just naturally amazing at deflecting. And I would not let you deflect.
Nope.
And I kept coming back. It was 3 hours of just me berating you over not letting you be the victim.
Right.
And I remember when that was over, me saying to you, David, once you understand the difference between a victim and an accountable person, you're going to see it.
Yep.
And then a couple of days later, what happened?
Yeah. I don't remember where I was or what I was doing, but I
do, but we're not going to say what it is.
Really? What was it? I don't remember. So I can't remember exactly what happened or what I was doing at the time, but I just remember I called you. It was after something, and I just said, like, Dan, like, I get it. Like, the whole victim versus mentality, there's victims everywhere. And everybody I talked to, I don't know, that day, just everyone I talked to was saying I could be better if it wasn't for my parents. I could be better if it wasn't for that thing that happened to me. And it just like really gave me like the ick. No kidding. I just was like, it was everywhere. I didn't find anybody that day that wasn't not saying something that led to being a victim. None of them were talking in an accountable way. And I just couldn't talk to those people at all. I just had to get out of it.
Right. Well, that's the reality here, guys, is if you are the victim of your circumstance, then you're stuck in that circumstance. Someone else has to change for you. And now listen, I'm never going to say that whatever trial or tribulation or difficulty you're going through in your life, I'm not going to say that you're responsible for it. Like my dad, he abused me brutally. I'm not responsible for that, but I'm accountable for that. Well, what does that mean, Dan? You tell 11-year-old he's accountable for his dad punching him in the face? That's the reality of my life. Yes, I'm accountable to how I respond to that.
Right.
And what I do with that, and with that dilemma, with that issue. And that's what I want people to learn about being a victim. See, the only way things get right with me and my dad is if my dad changes. So therefore, I have to be a bad dad because my dad was a bad dad. And that's my programming. Or I can only get better if I had better salt. And it's, remember, the way you think about anything is the way you think about everything. And that permeates into your brain. And it becomes reality. It becomes the truth. And I wouldn't allow you to be there because I saw something more in you. I saw my son, Zach, in you. And I wanted you to have the life that he was supposed to have. And so I wouldn't let you off the hook. And that was the first of many real challenges.
Yep.
And the vetting process. And my wife loves you. Mindy loved you from the day she met you. You are, your personality, her personality are a match.
Yep, very.
My personality and your personality are not a match.
Not entirely.
But then we came back to work, fast forward, like more stories in there, but we fast forward. And I remember saying, like, Dave, you're in the best shape of your life. I'd gotten you to buy a Mont Blanc pen for me, and you owed me some money. I got you to buy a Mont Blanc pen.
That's a whole nother story.
And you learned some things there.
Yep.
You had kind of passed and checked all these things. And I look up and you're in the best shape of your life. You're making more money than you've ever made before in your life. You're genuinely a good dude. You have a great relationship with your friends. You're the anchor of morality around you. You don't do bad stuff. And I gave you another challenge. Do you remember that one?
Well, the first one I remember about a girlfriend.
Yeah, David, you need to go on a date.
Yep.
And I said, David, you need to go on a date. And you said what?
Okay.
And then a couple days later, go by, and I said, David, you go on a date? And what'd you say?
Not yet, but I'm working on it.
Not yet, but I'm working on it. It means no, and I'm deflecting.
Yep.
Okay. So then I said, all right, David, you should go on a date. And you said?
I'm working on it.
Okay. And then a couple days later, I asked you, David, did you go on a date?
Not yet. Still working on it.
I'm working on it. And I remember saying to you, David, this is one of a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'm going to fire you if you do not go on a date.
Right.
David, you don't have to marry anyone and you don't have to sleep with anyone, but you need to go on a date.
Yep. I remember.
And then I remember, fast forward a little bit more. The story is you ended up going on a date.
Yep.
And without telling all the story, the details of the story, but you went out with a single mom.
Yep.
And we know how single mom situations go.
Yep.
And when the date was over, you came in. I said, David, you go on a date? And you said, yeah, I went on a date. Told me the story. And in some people's estimations, it ended well.
Right.
To egomaniacs like myself, it ended well.
Right.
And I was all high-fiving you and congratulations, good for you. That's amazing. That's awesome. And again, another indication of you're just a better man than me. You walked out of my office and you said it kind of under your breath, but enough for me to hear it. And you said, I just don't want to be that kind of guy.
Right. I remember.
And I went home that night and I told my wife, Mindy, David Berlant is just a better human being than me. And I said to her, if I ever had a daughter, he could marry her. as if like I was validating you as just being a good dude.
Right.
Because you are. I mean, you are. You just have a light about you that others are better when they're in your presence because that's just David. And then you say, Dan, I think I should learn Spanish.
Yep.
And David, you're a doer. Like you're not an alpha driver type guy like me, but you are a doer.
Right.
When you set your mind to things, you do it.
Yep.
So what happened?
Well, I wanted to learn Spanish because where I was doing a lot of business was in an area where I really could have benefited from speaking Spanish. And I had lots of clients that wanted me to be able to communicate with them, and I lost opportunities. I made less money because I couldn't help these people because I didn't speak the language. So I wanted to learn, so I hired a teacher. I went on on Google and found a couple teachers. I interviewed one on Zoom. And then I found one who was actually local that I could go to her house, and I did class on Mondays from like 5 to 7 p.m. for like almost 9 months.
I mean, you were learning Spanish.
Yep, practicing every week.
And then one day you came up to me and you started like what David used to do. And David's so cute. I mean, I know it sounds weird to call another man cute, but he is so cute. He would just randomly call you and say, Dan, and he would say a bunch of stuff in Spanish, and then he would tell you what he just said.
I still do that today.
It was so funny that he would do that. And I remember, again, I'm just different. I'm not like David. I'm just different. I'm very driven. I said, David, if you want to learn how to speak Spanish, you got to just date a Spanish girl.
Right.
You'll be very motivated to learning how to speak Spanish. Just date a girl who speaks Spanish. And you said, okay.
Yep.
I assumed you'd dismiss me because you had actually gone on another date with another girl, a Disney girl.
Yep.
And, you had fulfilled what I wanted you to do. You're just now becoming that whole life millionaire that I envisioned you having it all, right? And so you got your balance, you're figuring it out, and the lesson has been learned, and it's time to move on.
Right.
And we had moved on, and now I'm just kind of shaping you in other areas of your life, more responsible, learning how to manage your money better, investing, doing things like that.
Definitely.
And then you and I go down to Haines City, Florida. We're supposed to do an Ironman.
We're supposed to race that day.
I don't know if you remember, but you and I actually went there to go train.
Yep.
And we said, well, it's going to be in the middle of the day. Let's go train for the heat. You remember what we did then?
Yep.
Tell them what we did.
Well, I mean, if it's the same day, I mean, we did. So I think we woke up early enough to get the bike ride done. Was that when it was cold and then it got hot, or?
Yes, it was the day. Yes, where it got really hot in the afternoon.
I don't know if I remember it all, but
Well, we almost passed out,
okay.
and I started peeing blood at the end.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was on the bike course. Like so it was just a training ride, and we trained on the hottest time of the day, which is about when you would be normally getting off the bike in a half Ironman.
Yep.
And we were both nearly dead after that 56 mile.
Yeah, that would be just stupid.
Yeah, not a good idea. But we did it. We did a lot of things that we, probably shouldn't have done. But, it was for training purposes. We wanted to, put ourselves in the training mode. And you got to experience it if you're going to go do it. And that race was one of the hardest races that I had ever done, too. But, yeah, I remember, and, that was not a great day.
That was a terrible day for both of us. I thought I almost killed you, and I almost killed myself. Because that was the first time, and only really twice in all of my training that I actually peed blood.
Yeah.
Next time I did that was with Chris, during that race.
Yeah, right.
Which, God, you should have peed blood for that one. That was extremely challenging. Okay.
Yeah.
But so then we actually, both of us are injured.
Yep.
I can't race. You can't race.
Yep.
And we decided, why don't we just go volunteer? We're losing our money. We're not going to be able to do it. So let's go volunteer. And what happens?
So it was the race was starting, or it was about to start.
Yep.
And we were at the bike mount line at the triathlon, where you basically get out of the water and you're getting on the bike. And we saw Mercy, and then Mercy was with a young girl who, I introduced myself, and her name was Claudia. And Mercy was with Claudia, and she introduced us, and I gave Claudia a hug because she was really pretty, and I was in pretty good shape. So I'm like, okay, let me give her a hug, and
you start a conversation.
Yep.
And the David of just 3 months earlier, does he have the confidence to start a conversation with this? No, this girl's from Venezuela.
Yep.
So her English is not great.
Nope.
It's good, but not great.
Yep.
Do you have the confidence to meet this? I mean, you normally don't have this confidence. Where does the confidence come this day?
I think it was just because I knew everybody who was at that race, and I know everything about Ironman at the time because I would have been racing it if I wasn't. So I knew what was going on, and she was willing to stick around and hang out with me. So we spent the whole day together just watching people get off the bike or get on the bike, and then they get off the bike, and then they get on the run, and we're cheering people on the run, and I'm watching the stats of, all right, Joelle's about to run by, or Lori's about to come, and she's just there with me, and then all of a sudden they run by, and we're cheering, and
so it's just a whole day together. And I left because I went to go. I think I was on the bike course.
You were on the bike the whole time, yeah.
Yep. And so we met Claudia. You spend the day with her. I go out, and what ends up happening? Or the date's over.
So later that day, I remember Joel was coming up, and he was like, David, who's that girl? And I'm like, her name's Claudia. Mercy brought her. And he's like, you need to get her phone number. You need to ask her out.
Interesting.
And so I remember she was right there with me. So I asked her for her phone number, and she gave me her number, and I texted her, and that was it.
All right. Now, David, I remember some of the girls that you had gone on dates with, the single mom, the Disney girl. This girl didn't look like the single mom or the Disney girl.
No.
She looked a lot different.
Yeah.
Kind of out of your league.
Way out of my league.
Right. And yet you've got the confidence to do that. I mean, I think it's a level of timing. You were ready. The timing was right. God had a plan. It all played out, right?
Yeah.
So then you guys go on a date?
Yep. So we went on our first date, and it went really well. And then we stayed, I texted her another day, and we went on another date.
All right. Now, David, you've got massive game. You're a player in the field.
Very.
Your second date, what do you decide you're going to plan to do? It's also her birthday. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what is your plan?
So because she didn't know a lot of people here, and we were dating, I decided to throw her a birthday party at a restaurant here in downtown.
So a birthday party, you're going to get her favorite cake, tres leches from Venezuela. You've invited everyone, all your family to be there.
Yep, I invited all my brothers and their girlfriends and wives, and I invited you and Mindy and Mercy and probably a few other people, but it wasn't huge, but it was definitely a part, like an event.
Okay, so David's second date, he's going to invite his girl that he's trying to get to fall in love with him to meet with all of his family members, and then adds Dan and Mindy last minute.
Yep.
If he hadn't had enough pressure with the family, then he throws Dan and Mindy on there.
Yep.
So then it's the night of her birthday party, your date, and who ends up showing up?
So unfortunately, the brothers and their wives couldn't make it. So it ended up just being me and Claudia and you and Mindy. And then Mercy did show up too.
Right. And then Claudia ended up sitting across from me. You sat across from Mindy.
Yep.
And because you and Mindy just naturally get each other, you guys just started.
Yeah, yeah.
And I sat across from Claudia and I started talking to her and asking her questions.
Right.
And I was really intrigued. I don't think she spoke great English. You say great English. I thought it was okay English. And I was intrigued by the fact that this girl came here from 19 years old. She was telling me a story. She was living at her aunt's house,
Yep.
sleeping on the couch, and she came to the United States to start a new life for herself. And nobody believed she could do it.
Right.
In her family. And she's telling me that day one.
Yeah.
And the whole thing I'm hearing is my story. I left New York when I was 19 and I wanted to start a new life for myself. And nobody believed it was possible for me. I didn't believe it was possible for me. And as she's telling this story, I'm hearing a lot of me. And at the end of the night, we do birthday and I ask her, hey, would it be okay if David shared your phone number with me? I'd love to have coffee with you, get to know you. And in my mind, I'm going to play like a little father figure, help her with life.
Right.
And she agrees and we start having coffee and then you guys start dating.
Yep.
And how long until you guys kind of make this thing serious?
It was pretty quickly. I feel like we started dating and we were going on dates every day. And, she's not from Florida, not from the U.S., so she didn't grow up going to Disney World every weekend like I did and Universal. So we did every date night you could think of, you could do here in Orlando. And it's every day.
Yeah. So, you packed in like the first couple weeks, 10, 15 dates.
Minimum, yeah.
And at the time, she's working 2 jobs.
Yeah, maybe 3. Maybe.
Yeah, and I refer to them as immigrant jobs.
Well, they are.
She's on International Drive, working under the books.
Yep.
She's working a day job. She's working a night job. She's working in warehouses.
Taking the bus to work every day. Yeah.
Taking the bus to work. Just got this drive to be successful and do something great with her life. Just all the makings of an amazing human being. And I'm learning about her. And then she tells you she's having trouble where she lives.
Yep.
Where she live? What's she doing?
Yeah. So at the time she lived out in the east side near the airport, and she was living on her aunt's couch and
In an apartment.
In an apartment, yeah, it's a 1-bedroom. So she was on the couch and sharing the bathroom, the 1-bedroom, 1-bath that they had, and it just wasn't going very well. Her and her aunt and her aunt's husband weren't going where they should, and it just got to a point where Claudia said, I just can't be here anymore.
And she's scared.
She was scared. Yeah, she needed to leave like that night. And so I remember picking her up. She stayed with me that night. And then the next day, she ended up moving in with a friend of hers that was from Venezuela that actually lived here, and helped her move out of her aunt's apartment and all of her stuff into this new little 1-bedroom.
What was that aunt's name? You say it in Spanish. What was it called?
I mean, her real name is...
you don't have to say that. What is the nickname?
Well, Tia Loca.
What does that mean in Spanish?
It's like your crazy aunt. Everyone's got one.
Okay. I don't have a crazy aunt.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
you do. You just don't know it.
Okay. Perfect. So she's living with those people, and then how long till she ends up moving in? Well, let me back up. You're on another journey of your own. You're on this journey of figuring out who you're going to be.
Right.
And you lived with your parents, then you lived with Charlie,
Yep.
and then you said, I want to live where?
So I said I wanted to live at the View.
And what kind of feedback did you get at home on that?
It was not good. It was pretty expensive to live at the View. They have this fee that you have to pay to move in and move out. So $1,000 fee, write a check just to move in. And then if you ever move out, you have to pay that $1,000 fee again. So it was a lot of money at the time. And my family, was just saying like, you're crazy. Why would you ever do that? And, that you shouldn't do that, that you're going to have to move out because you're not going to be able to afford it.
Right. And what did I say?
You said, now you have to do it. You have to move there. And if you can't afford it, I'll pay for it for you.
And how many times I have to pay for it for you?
Never.
You leveled up.
Yep.
And now here you are leveling up in your personal life. Like, so you're in the best shape of your life. You're learning real estate. You're learning life. You're building on all these things. And then you take another risk and you end up moving into the View, which is a luxury condo community.
Yep.
Probably the number one condo at the time, maybe even still here in Central Florida. NBA players live there, celebrities live there, and you're living there.
Yeah, Lamborghinis in the parking lot and all the fancy cars. I saw a couple Magic players that, just randomly in the building, and great location right there off Lake Eola. I loved it.
And then what happens next?
Well, I asked Claudia to move in with me,
right?
And she said yes. I mean,
so you guys are official girlfriend, boyfriend for a bit, and then you ask her to move in.
Yep. So 6 months-ish after we met, that's when she officially moved in with me.
Right. It's beautiful. Love that. I mean, it's because you're a good dude.
Yep.
And at the same time, I'm having coffee with her.
Yep.
Now, Mindy and I are vetting you to be the person that we give our inheritance to. I'm starting to realize that, David, you're going to be better than me. You are better than me as a person, and you're going to be more successful than me. You just have it. The good guys win. I believe that. I like to believe that I'm a good guy and I'm going to win. But you're better than me. I just know that. I knew that then. I know that you're going to do much bigger things than me. You're going to be much more successful than me. At that time, I loved you. I thought of you as a child already. One of my other kids. My wife called you her other son long before I did. We jokingly used to say we would invite David over and be like, David, come over. Act like our house is your house. And then like a week later, David's like letting himself in our house. My wife and I are scurrying off in our underwear, and then like, who just came in? I'd be like, now I know David's here. How? His ass is hanging out of my refrigerator. Yep. His ass is hanging out of my cupboards. And like, my wife would specifically buy the snacks for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like David's favorite snacks. So David would literally put the code in, come in our house, and then go, boom, right to his snacks and get him. And that's how I would know David was there. I wouldn't see him on the couch. I'd see him with his ass hanging out of my refrigerator.
Yep.
And
Mindy bought the good snacks.
Yes, she did. And she loves you. And she loved you then. And so I'm interviewing Claudia at the time. And I remember, me feeling like I need to kind of be this thing for her, this Uncle Dan person. And I'm Uncle Dan to a lot of people. I don't have nieces and nephews, and I want my life to matter, and I want to do something better. So I'm always looking for people to give to, and I'm giving to you. And I'm kind of coming to the realization that you don't need me. I'm glad to tell you, I don't think you need me. You're going to be better whenever I sign off, whenever my chapter is over, whenever it's your turn, you're going to just do better than me. I just know that. But as I'm talking to Claudia, I realize she needs help. She needs the security of a family. And so I started asking her questions. I'm sweating. Like we're sitting in a Starbucks one day and I'm asking her questions and I'm trying to like give her everything in 15 minutes that you're supposed to give her over 15 years, you know? And I remember one time I'm sitting there talking to her, and you remember her English isn't great. And, and I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to be this thing to her. And I want to make sure she's secure in all areas of her life. And now she's living with you. And I'm trying to talk to her like, do you know sex?
Right.
Do you know this? And how do you talk to a girl about this? Nobody else is talking about it. So I guess I have to. And Mindy's not willing to do it. So I'm like trying to shepherd her a little bit. And I'm talking to her about it. I remember sweating my ass off. And meanwhile, she's sitting like, She's not freaking out. I'm freaking out. I don't think she actually knows where I'm trying to go with the conversation. And then I have a moment of clarity. And I say to her, Claudia, if David leaves his dishes all over the apartment, what do you do? And she says, I clean it up. And I said, okay. And I said, why? She goes, well, because I love him. She's a great girl. And I said, well, what if he leaves his underwear on the floor? She goes, I'll clean it up. And I said, why? She says, because I love him. And I started thinking about my wife. My wife is a sweetheart. She's great. She's unbelievable. She'll do anything for me. But my wife has a security with me where she won't clean up my underwear. She'll make me do it because I'm a big boy and I should do that. And she has a security with me and the safety of me to know that she can tell me to go clean up my dishes because she's safe and secure. So I ended up asking Claudia. I just don't even know where the question came from. I don't know how I did it. I just said, Claudia, are you ever afraid that if David broke up with you, you'd have no place to live?
Right.
And she started to cry. And she said, yes. And it wasn't because you were bad. It's because she lacked security.
Right.
You were everything. Boyfriend, security, just everything. It was all encapsulated. You know how relationships go, especially when you're young. And she's experienced life enough to know that this may not work out.
Right.
If it doesn't work out, she loses everything. Mm-hmm. And so I said, that's it, Claudia. I'm adopting you. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I remember. She doesn't remember it. I know, like, some of my stories aren't exactly accurate. I get that. This is accurate. She didn't even, it was such a surprise that I would say that to her that she didn't even say what in English. She said it in Spanish. She goes, "Okay," like shocked. And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to adopt you." And then she's like, "Really? Like you want to adopt me?" Like she didn't think that was possible. She had no idea that I was thinking about adopting anyone, much less you.
Right.
And giving you our inheritance, which for you wouldn't have been an adoption. For her, it would have been an adoption. And then I said, "Yeah, adopt you." And she's like, shocked. And I go, "Let me just get Mindy on the phone." So I go speakerphone right there at the Starbucks. And I go, "Hey, Mindy, we're going to adopt Claudia." And Mindy's like, "Absolutely. Yeah, this will be awesome." And, you and I met your wife at the same time.
Right.
You married her. I adopted her.
Yep.
What an amazing story, David.
Yeah. It's wild. I mean, one thing that I remember, because I remember you actually called me and said, you didn't say it necessarily like I'm going to adopt Claudia, but you, for lack of a better words, oh, actually, no, I remember now. You said to Claudia that if it didn't work out with David, you can move in with us. We have a room. We'll buy another property if we need to make sure you have a place to stay so that you can, be the best person for who you are to David. And, after you told it to me, maybe not in the exact words, but that's what you were saying.
No, I'll tell you exactly how it went down. And again, hopefully I won't get emotional on this one. I can't remember a time that I haven't. I'm crying already just even thinking about the story. How beautiful you are, David. As I called you up and I said, "David, I just want to let you know that I just told Claudia that if she ever breaks up with you, she can move in with Mindy and I, no questions asked."
Yep.
And now David is 100% dating his dream girl.
Oh, yeah.
You never lived with a girl before.
Never.
You've never been in love like this.
Nope.
You never had a serious girlfriend like this.
Never.
Like, I don't think you ever had a serious girlfriend
never.
ever had a serious girlfriend.
I never changed my Facebook for a girl.
So you had never really had a serious girlfriend. And knowing that, I said to you, you said back to me, "Why would you do that?"
Yep.
Which is a reasonable answer. Like, what? Dan, you're like my best friend.
Yeah.
You're like my mentor. You're all these things to me. Like, why would you give my dream girl an out?
Right.
You didn't say it that way. You just said, "Why?"
Yep.
And I said, "So she can love you unconditionally."
Yep. And I remember because I ended up saying thank you, which was not the response that most people probably expected from me.
Yeah. Turn the camera off me. Put it on me.
I mean, because it was, I took a second to answer it and I was like, "You know what? Thank you." Like, I remember because it was nice to be able to say, like, Claudia's actually with me. Because, being from another country, like, there's always the thought that, like, maybe she's with me because I'm American and there's a green card and a passport. Like, who knows? I mean, plenty of people had said that. And I never believed it because, like, I could tell, like, I just never believed it.
She was different.
She was different, very different, and beautiful, most beautiful woman I have ever met. And when you gave her that option and I thought about it, it really made sense that, like, I wanted her to be with me, not because, I have this nice apartment and because I'm making okay, good money and, I have a life and a car and a job, like, I'm doing good things. Like, it made sense that you would offer that to her because that's just who you are. And I was thankful for it that, she's going to be with me because she wants to, not because she has to. And, that,
right.
If you probably didn't offer that, I don't know where we'd be today.
I don't know where we'd be today either, but my life is forever changed because of that moment of brilliance. But I will tell you, David, that I hear what you're saying. And in the back of my mind, a part of me just says bullshit. Because when you said why, when you said why, and I said, "So she can love you unconditionally," you did not think about it. You just responded with "thank you." So there was no thinking.
Yeah, it was pretty
You
quick.
immediately came to the realization that that was what was in her best interest, not your best interest.
Right.
Now, time has gone by, like a decade has gone by.
Yeah.
So now you're giving me the answer that you think that is, but you didn't have 20 minutes to think about it or 2 minutes to think about it. You literally responded within like 5 seconds where your best friend, your mentor just sabotaged your dream girlfriend and gave her an out, which, David, you know this. You had low self-confidence at that time.
Yeah.
And you were thinking, "I'm not good enough for her."
Right. Why is she with me? I have no idea.
Right. And then I give her the ability to not be with you. And within 5 seconds of me telling you that I gave her that out And I explained so she can love you unconditionally. You said, thank you, because you knew it was better for her than it was for you.
Right.
And that's what makes you beautiful. That's what makes you better than me.
Yeah. Well,
because I think about that 100 times. I don't know that I would have answered it the way you answered it.
I mean, I've heard from a lot of people and, have said like that's not normal. Like, why would you say thank you to that? And I don't know. That's just who I am, I guess.
Yeah. It's who you are and who you continue to choose to be.
Yeah.
Because that naive, kind, sweet guy has been taken advantage of so many times and has been laid out to dry. And you know that that's your gift, but it's also your weakness where people can exploit you.
Right.
And you've been exploited a million times that way.
Right. Plenty.
So you choose to put yourself out there. That is your bravery. That is your character. That's what makes you better. And the reason why I cry telling this story is because I wish I was that. And it gives me hope that I could be that. So for every piece of mentoring I've done for you, you've done for me. Everything you've learned from me, I've learned more. Our journeys are intertwined in such a beautiful way. So if we fast forward to today, David, you are in the 1% of the 1% of real estate agents your age.
Right.
How many houses do you think you sold last year?
It was about 60-ish.
But you're responsible in terms of transactions for more than that because you do 60 that you got paid for, 60 you didn't get paid for. So you're really kind of like over 100.
Definitely touched over 100 files easy.
Right. And then some of them you don't get compensated for. Some you just do to help people out.
Yep.
But you got paid for roughly 60.
Yeah.
How many investment properties do you have now?
I have 3 rental properties.
And where does your mom live?
And my mom lives in one of them.
So you support your mom.
Yep. I pay for her mortgage. And I know I took it right from the book of Dan because you bought your home for your mom. And I remember with mom, I was paying for her rent at this apartment downtown because she lost her job during COVID. And, she ended up moving back to Orlando from Jacksonville. And I'm just thinking like, why am I paying rent for her when I could just buy a house? Like, this is what we do. And I came to you and said, this is what I'm thinking. And you said like, we'll buy a house for her and we'll buy a house, like, and we'll pay for it. And it just gave me the idea like, okay, I can do this. So that's when we went out and found her a little 2-bedroom and bought the house and committed to basically paying this mortgage for the rest of her life.
Right. And you not only just pay her mortgage, you pay everything.
Utilities, water, electric, phone bill.
And your mom got sick a couple of years ago?
Yeah, well, not a couple, last year.
Last year, your mom got sick and you literally stood up and mom and dad got divorced.
Yep.
And you've been it all.
Yeah, it's tough.
You've shown up.
Yeah.
I mean, the least likely to be the hero of this story is David Berlant.
Yeah.
I mean, in every area of your life, you became the hero.
Yeah. Well, with my mom, I mean, during the part that you probably have never heard, but the time in which before I joined the home to sell team, while I was being this struggling real estate agent trying to figure it out, I spoke to my mom every night when she was in Jacksonville. And, I was talking to her and I was upset and I'm like, this isn't working. I'm not making any money. I might have to go get a second job. And I just pretty much was venting to my mom pretty much every night. So she heard like the stories and she heard me, me going to Bold. She heard me meeting you and then wanting to work with you, but not having the opportunity to. So I was very close with my mom throughout the whole process of like the ups and downs of that journey. And then she obviously saw how I changed my life working with you and, just doing all the things that we did outside of work. And so, long story short, we're just very close together. So when my mom, needed help with her, getting sick last year, like I was the natural candidate to be able to say, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to commit to figuring out what do we need to do to get her through this. And that was my first job before real estate. That was my first job. Like, I put off on all of our transactions. The team helped with it while I was out. And, that was my full commitment. Priority number 1 was mom. Priority number 2 was selling real estate. And that was last year.
Yeah. And where did you get the strength to do that? Like, where does that come from?
Honestly, it came naturally. I didn't have to try to do that. I just did it. The second we found out that she had cancer, it was, I'm going to figure it out for her and for me because I want to know. And I know that she's not really in that position to know. I'm already, supporting her life and paying for the mortgage and paying all of the expenses for her with nothing coming back in that world. And I just knew if it had to be done, I was the best person to do it. And I knew that she couldn't do it, and that's what just naturally made me step up to say, I'm going to figure it out.
I think you're naturally a good guy, and I agree with you. And I want this podcast to be learning lessons for others, right?
Right.
So I agree that you are a good guy and you just stood up for your mom because it's the right thing to do. But I don't think that you just naturally did it. You did it because for the 5 years preceding that, you practiced adversity.
For sure.
And you took yourself to very difficult places.
Yep.
Voluntarily.
Right.
So that when involuntarily difficulty showed up,
yep,
you were ready.
Yeah, I get that.
And David, here's the reality of that. Not only did your mom get sick, but then the market shifted.
Oh, yeah.
So it was harder to sell houses.
Yep.
Some of our best clients were no longer our best clients. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I think you found termites in your place.
Yep.
Your mom's place.
Mm-hmm. We had renters move out. Vacancy.
Business relationships fall apart.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't just get challenged. You got challenged and challenged and challenged and challenged and challenged. And you showed up every time.
Yeah, I tore my meniscus. That wasn't fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was all in an 18-month period.
Pretty much.
And then, and the reality of that, when you find out your mom is sick, like your mom.
Yep.
Your mom was your home base, your place of safety.
Yeah.
And finding out your mom's sick, like sick means she could die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality. You could be optimistic and think it through and all this, but like, that's what it could mean.
Yep.
And, your dad's a great guy and we're not indicting anyone, but like your dad wasn't there.
No.
And your brothers did the best they could, but it was all on you. It was 100% on you.
Right.
And you showed up.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's why I think it naturally just happened, because I was already showing up in other areas. And, it was also a challenge, a challenge that I hadn't overcome and that I wanted to solve. Sometimes you just can't solve everything, but, if I could solve it, I would. And, I had to figure it out for the life of my mom. And, I just had to I had to figure it out, because none of us, my whole family, we've never gone through that before. So meeting with surgeons and doctors and oncologies and just dealing with what she was dealing with, it was very foreign. And reading MRIs and CAT scans and CTs, it was interesting to read how it operates, and the body is an amazing thing. How it recovers on its own, and modern medicine, how they can do what they do. It's unbelievable. And I had to take it on whether I liked it or not, and I'm glad that I did, because I think I was able to help move things along quicker than anybody else could have.
Love that. And I love that you say you had to take it on, but you didn't have to take it on. You chose to take it on.
Yeah.
And you took it all.
Yeah. Yep.
You coordinated your brothers, like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? But I remember like you being in the hospital and then going home to rest and starting to do some work, and then mom's got to be hospitalized again.
Yeah.
And then boom, David's back to the hospital, or Claudia's back to the hospital. I mean, it's all of that.
Yep.
And I remember you were pretty guarded about who you'd let even be there.
Yeah, definitely.
Like it was like that. And your mom, a lot of the times, only wanted you, because I even offered to go one night to the hospital, and your mom's like, I want David.
Yeah.
Like, you became that hero that she needed, and you showed up, and that's something to be super proud of. Your mom's alive and well.
Yeah,
she's
better than
functioning
ever.
well. She's walking around, like walking 5 miles a day.
Yep.
Lori's amazing. She's got, a heart of gold. You're actually going to take her to New York this Friday and take her to see what?
Wicked and Aladdin.
Oh my God, Wicked, my favorite. I've seen it 11 times. I love it.
Yep.
Only reason why I haven't seen it more is because that hasn't been available more.
Gotcha.
If I could watch Wicked every day, I would go see Wicked every day.
Gotcha.
I'd be broke, but I would see Wicked every day. Well, great story. Kind of like our story. I'm the wicked one, you're the good one, and I'm better because I knew you.
That
we're
make
both
me
better.
Elphaba or Glinda?
That makes you Elphaba. Well, I'm Elphaba. You're Glinda, except I was the asshole the whole time, and you were the good dude the whole time.
Right.
And then when the story's over, you were still the good guy, and I became better. That's the way I'm going to remember the story, nonetheless.
I'll take it.
But your mom's alive and well.
Yes, very.
Looking back into that season of your life, what are the lessons you take away from it? Now, actually, let me say it differently, David, because I don't want you to tell me the lessons you take away from it. I want you to look in this camera here, and I want you to tell the lessons that they can take away from it. Because there's a 28, 29-year-old young man like yourself that's got the weight of the world on them right now who's going to watch this.
Yeah.
And they don't care what this old man's got to say, what Dan Greaves got to say. Like, I'm 50 years old. Like, I can't relate. You can.
Right.
What would you tell him?
What would I tell him? I mean, that's a good question. I tend to try to not, maybe it's an ego thing. Like, I don't want to talk as if I know everything because I don't. But I do know a lot, but I don't know everything. So,
Well, tell him what you do know.
what would I tell him? Well, I mean, I'd say like what you see yourself in 5 years is like not even close to what you could actually do. Like what you underestimate what you could do in 5 years, but you overestimate what you can do in 1 year.
That's correct.
So like I remember in Bold, we wrote down our list of things that we thought we could achieve, like, having this and doing that and earning this and making that. And I just remember writing that and writing these big goals. And when they tell you to write it, they say, think as big as you can. And then you start writing it. And then they're like, all right, now I want you to double it. So like as far as income, if you wanted to earn 150,000, now you have to double it and make 300,000. And looking back at the time, it's like, that sounds impossible. How could I go from making not even 100,000 to making 300,000? So they talked really heavy into the goal building. So you can actually do a whole lot more. You can change your whole life in 5 years. Like 5 years ago from today, I'm nothing like I was today. And going back another 5 years, I was like 2 or 3 lifetimes away, that's what I thought, from where I was at that time. So you can achieve a whole lot more in 5 years than you actually can. And you just have to start today.
Love that, David. That's really awesome. Well, let's kind of wrap this up and let's kind of recap some things. So I think Keller Williams should be really proud of Bold, not only for the business transformations that have occurred, mm-hmm. but like our relationship is actually our relationship was born in Bold.
Yeah.
And what Bold stands for is business objective, a life by design. This year it was
not by default.
Yeah, not by default. That's important to remember that. But here's the thing to remember. Bold got changed this year, and it's more about living that big life that you and I got to experience by accident. And they're actually teaching it that way. So when it comes back to Orlando, I'm definitely taking it again. I know you're going to take it. We're going to have everybody on our team take it. It's
definitely
mandatory with our team, and I'm going to pay for it. But something beautiful can start anywhere. You got to be bold.
Definitely.
You were bold enough to come up to me.
Yep.
And then you had the perseverance to keep coming up to me. I'm grateful for Bold. I'm grateful for your boldness. And I'm grateful for the fact that you pursued me. Because maybe you came into my life looking to get something from me. But what you gave is far more. I mean, to describe our relationship as anything less than magical, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really just magical. I look forward to living the rest of my life with you. I'm grateful for Bold. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for a lot of the difficulties in my life because it led me to the opportunity that I have today to speak into your life, to have Claudia, to have this beautiful family that I have, to have the world's best wife. My 2 boys are fantastic just to do that. We're all going to go away on a family trip.
Yep.
Our second family trip that we never thought was possible when we were growing up.
Right.
And now for the next generation, for Claudia, for Riley, for Drew, that's just normal.
Yep.
We just always go away as a family and love on each other and spend time together. So Bold was 1. 2 is do hard things.
Yep.
Challenge yourself, believe in yourself. There's so many amazing stories of that. And you're an example of that. And the last one is when you accomplish it all, make sure you take care of those around you. Don't forget about those around you. You never forgot about them. You didn't get so rich or so big or so amazing that you could even consider stepping away from your mom. When it was time for you to step up, you did.
Yep. And I would do it again.
That's the story of David Berlant. We started this podcast with the idea of a whole life millionaire. The very first person I interviewed was my wife. Because Mindy exemplifies so many beautiful things. She's She's a great mom. She wanted to be a mom when she was very young. She wanted to be a wife. When 11 years old, she made that decision. She wanted to be the best. She's accomplished it. She's a millionaire in that, no doubt about it. She lives a really great life. She just really does. I probably should interview you second because you're probably the second example, closest example to me of a whole life millionaire. You live a really great life. You're a really great human being. You deserve all your success and everything that comes with it. I look forward to the rest of our lives together, and I can't wait to watch you beat me.
Well, thank you.
It's been an honor to do this interview with you today, David. Is there anything you think you should say as you sign off?
I love Mindy. I love you, Mindy. She's amazing. Like, my mom is amazing, but Mindy is like the best mom I think you could ever ask for. And even though I wasn't, I didn't grow up together with her, but the time that we've met her, I mean, the day I met Mindy was like one of my favorite days. And, she's treated me like her son, from that day. So, she's just amazing. So I can't not give her at least a little shout out.
Well, that's beautiful. I've got my phone out here. My producer's like yelling at me, like, put your phone down. But I wrote down this quote that I had written down for Claudia. But I think Mindy would say the same thing to you. And it said, even though I did not give you the gift of life, life gave me the gift of you. I think Mindy would say that to you, and I could definitely say that to Claudia. And it's just a magical thing we have. And, as we start talking about being a whole life millionaire, David's an example of that. Mindy's an example of that. All of our guests are an example of that. We could all are millionaires at something. If you know somebody that needs to hear this message, or someone that should be interviewed on this, would you please reach out to us? If you're taking anything away from this story, the things that we wanted to take care of is we're just normal people who chose to be bold. And if you're impacted by anything we said, would you leave a comment below? Would you share this with other people? This is not about clicks or likes, or we're never going to monetize this. This is about giving the best of ourselves away.
Definitely.
You've given the best of yourself to me, David, and I'm grateful for it. God bless you.
Thank you.